Hello everyone. Tonight we'll dive into one of the coldest nightmares humanity has ever called life, where death lurks just beneath the snow, and survival is nothing but a series of desperate compromises. This isn't a tale of Viking warriors conquering the world, but of ordinary people fighting every hour to avoid turning to stone in the Arctic darkness. Forget romantic images of feasts and battle axes. The truth is, if you survive this winter, you'll never be the same again. Before you lean back and get comfy, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel, but only if you genuinely enjoy the content I share. And drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is there. It's fascinating to see people tuning in from all over the world. Now, turn off the lights, maybe switch on a fan for some background noise, and let's embark on tonight's journey together. Tonight, we're not charging into a legendary battle or stepping into the court of a ruthless emperor. Instead, we start in the cold enough to freeze piss the moment it hits the snow. A cold without shape or voice, but it's everywhere, seeping through every crack in the wood, slithering under tattered blankets, and sitting on your chest every time you try to sleep. If you think Vikings were just bare-chested, bearded warriors bellowing and conquering Europe, forget those images, because behind the battle axes and dragon ships lies a truth colder than the icy sword of death. They had to survive the Nordic winter, something even Thor would dodge if he could. You, yes you, will play the role of an ordinary Viking. Not a chief, not a legend, just a man, or woman, or child, waking up in mid-December, when the sun peeks out for a measly 4 hours, and the world outside is a deadly white block of ice. No central heating, no electric blankets, just animal hides, dry moss, and the warmth of trembling loved ones facing the same invisible death. Outside is a hell that doesn't burn. It's cold, silent, and crueler than any battlefield, but you still have to go out there to gather firewood, chip ice, and hope today isn't the day you slip into a frozen manure pit. In the days ahead, you'll learn to survive at all costs. Keep the fire alive like it's your own life. Eat moldy porridge like it's a privilege, and sleep with one eye open to stop rats from nibbling your ears as you pass out from the cold. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll freeze, you'll crave death, and then fear it. Because here, winter isn't a season, it's a force, and you're just a small sack of flesh, trying not to turn to stone in the endless darkness. So, before we begin, turn off the lights, switch on the fan, and prepare to step into the coldest, most miserable, and most authentic adventure in human history. This isn't mythology, this is the Viking winter. And you, yes, you just opened your eyes on a winter morning thick with frosty breath. If you can call it morning, since the light outside is just a faint layer of ash smeared across a lead-grey sky. You're not lying in a bed, but on a damp, moldy layer of moss and dry grass, spread directly on the ground, cold as a tombstone. On you is a stinking goatskin hide, reeking of wet grease and shedding fur. Next to you is your grandmother, who hasn't stirred in over an hour, but the steady wheeze in her throat is the only sign she's still alive, though she doesn't seem to want to be. To your right is your 7-year-old brother, hands cold as raw fish, feet kicking your face all night. To your left is the dog. Nobody owns it. Nobody knows where it came from, but it knows how to keep warm, and that's the only reason it's still allowed in the house. The air in the tent is thick, like watery soup cooked with smoke and sweat. Above, the pinewood ceiling is rotting, with holes between the planks dripping frozen dew. Wind whistles through the gaps, creating an endless whining background music, like the souls of neighbors who froze to death last month still wandering the forest. Every strong gust makes the whole tent shake like an empty drum. The skeletons hanging, once dried meat, sway as if waiting to fall into tonight's soup pot. You pull the hide up to your nose, exhale a thin puff of vapor, then cough because you inhaled a hair as stiff as a needle. Your throat burns like it's been scraped with gravel. You want to sit up, but that triggers a cascade of physical consequences. Your back is stuck to the cold moss, your knees are wet like sponges, and your feet, no feeling at all. You drag yourself upright in a half-dead, half-alive stance, and smack your head on the low roof beam for the 23rd time this month. You can't curse because your chapped lips are stuck together, like two pieces of wood glued with pine sap. The only light in the tent comes from a pile of cold ash in the corner. The fire went out hours ago. Someone fell asleep while tending it. Maybe your father. Maybe you. Everyone suspects each other, but nobody says a word. Talking wastes warmth, and winter mornings aren't for blame. You crawl to the ash pile, searching for a single live ember. Nothing. You spit into your palm and shove an iron rod into the ashes, colder than you thought. You pull back, swallowing a groan, then kick the dry wood, hoping some stray spark blessed by the fire god, Heimdall, might appear. Heimdall doesn't answer. He's sleeping somewhere much warmer. You need fire, not to cook, to survive. But to make fire, you need someone to blow. The strongest breather in the house is your father. He's still lying motionless, face buried in a straw mat, his nose puffing tiny bubbles of frozen snot. You wake him with a light kick to his heel wrapped in a patchy, moldy sheepskin. He lifts his head, growls something in Old Norse that roughly translates to, "It's your turn to kindle." Then he buries his face again and snores on. You look around. Your mother is scraping yesterday's soup from a stone crevice. Your brother is chewing a stick, either playing or starving. It's unclear. You know if you don't get a fire going in the next 10 minutes, everyone will start shivering. And shivering is the first step to choking, convulsing, and then the final blanket. You grab a flint and a rusty knife. Kneeling on a plank, you start striking. Sparks fly. They miss. You strike again. This time, a spark lands on the dry moss you gathered last autumn, moss from the eastern forest, rumored to be haunted by forest spirits. You don't believe it, but right now, if a spirit could help keep you warm, you'd shake its hand. After 4, 5, 12 strikes, the moss starts smoldering. You blow. Your breath trembles but persists. Ash smokes. Then, pop, a tiny sound like a whisper from the fire god. A flame flares up. The whole house stirs at once, like chickens coming back to life after being buried in snow. The fire lives, and so you live, at least until lunch. You sit by the growing flame. Your eyes sting from smoke, but it's warm. You feel your fingertips return. They throb like needles, a sign the blood's flowing. A glorious feeling, when pain itself proves you're not dead yet. Your grandmother sits up, muttering a story about another winter, when your great-grandfather burned the barn door to survive. You don't know if it's true or a hallucination, but everyone nods. Any story that ends with, "and they didn't die," is welcome. Outside, the wind still howls. The tent still shakes. But in that fragile moment, with the fire burning, soup thawing, and the dog licking your hand with a tongue cold as gravel, you believe you'll make it through this winter, even if not whole. But don't get too hopeful, because one more strong gust, and this survival game truly begins. The proof, just as you reach to toss more wood on the fire, your mother turns, scanning you head to toe with a look you've known since you were 5. The look of someone about to say something nobody wants to hear. "You're bathing today," she says. The words drop into the air like a death knell. The tent goes silent. Even the dog breathes softer. Your grandmother exhales like she's been summoned for sacrifice. Your brother inches away, as if you've turned into a thawing Viking zombie. You want to protest, but no argument can counter the truth. You haven't bathed since the snow started 3 weeks ago, and your smell could make a brown bear turn tail and run. In a land of ice and frozen hearts, bathing isn't about getting clean. It's a game of survival. You have to go outside, strip, touch water, cold, wet, and if you're not quick, death will clean you, for good. Vikings, famed for keeping their hair and beards tidy, knew a basic truth: a body too clean is weak, and weak means dead, so they bathed when forced. Like you today, you step out of the tent like a volunteer for execution. Everyone sees you off with fake, sympathetic looks. Your father tosses you a wooden bucket, like a weapon to a warrior. Your mother shoves a handful of dry moss and a rough soap made from ash, sheep fat, and sheer will to live into your hands. Nobody follows. Nobody wants to, because if the ice god picks someone to drag down today, better not stand too close. You trudge behind the tent, snows up to your ankles. The water bucket, filled by your mother this morning, has a thin ice crust. You smash it with your elbow. Mistake. Your arm goes numb to the shoulder. You use a stick next. The stick snaps. Finally, you bash rock against rock. The ice cracks, revealing black water, like the soul of a third winter Viking without light. You strip. Each layer of hide clings to you, with ice and despair. Every piece you peel off leaves your skin blazing red, like you just left a forge. The wind blows, the sky laughs, and you shake like a fish in a net. You bend, clutching moss, and douse yourself with the first scoop of water. The water hits your skin, and your body shuts down for 0.5 seconds. Not for the gods, but because your nervous system briefly dies. It's not just cold, it's stabbing, beating, tearing. You choke, skin prickling, eyes bulging. You try to scrub, moss sticks to your back. The soap doesn't foam, it screeches like your soul fleeing your body. Now the wind picks up. Your wet hair whips your face like a leather lash. You want to scream, but your mouth is freezing shut, like a small lake. You breathe. Your breath turns to vapor. Vapor turns to ice. Your hands lose dexterity. Your nose bleeds, not from a punch, from capillaries bursting due to the temperature shift. The bucket now taunts you. Dare to douse again. You douse. This time you don't scream. You don't react. You just stand like a discarded war god statue in the forest. Half wet, half frozen. You collapse. Not quite unconscious. Not quite awake. A vague state Vikings call, preparing to die. Then, a miracle. Your father's voice from the tent. Done yet, you lunatic. Right, you remember why. You have to survive. Not for honor, but because if you die, your mother will mourn the soap, and she'll curse you at your grave for 3 seasons. You drag yourself back to the tent. Your body shakes like the earth after a quake. Everyone looks at you like you've risen from the dead. Your brother backs up 3 more steps. The dog barks once and hides behind a blanket. You wrap yourself in everything you can. Blankets, old clothes, straw mats, even the ash sack from the hearth. Then you lie, trembling, satisfied that at least you don't smell like last week. And when your mother hands you a bowl of thick soup made from rotten potatoes and fishy vapor, you know you just passed a Viking test. Not everyone survives. But you also know winter's still 3 months long. And whether the next bath is with snow, ice, or your own blood, you're not sure you want to try again. This isn't cleansing. This is resistance. And in the Viking world, every hand wash might be the last you have hands to wash. You survived the horrific bath. But now, dry, or rather steaming in the literal sense, you realize there's an enemy more persistent and cunning than cold water. The wind, not the warm fairy tale breeze, but the kind that slithers through door cracks like an icy snake, weaving through every wooden gap, slipping into your collar, and blasting your back just when you start to feel warm. The kind of wind that makes you wonder how can something invisible make your butt numb and your nose ache at the same time. You're sitting by the hearth, wrapped in 3 blankets, eating thick porridge with a chipped wooden spoon, sweat beads on your neck, a rare moment of heat. But then, whoosh, a cold gust from somewhere hits your neck like a sucker punch from the void. You spin, hissing like a dragon doused with water. The door crack again. Nobody in the house responds. They know. You know. That crack's been there since your great-grandfather's time, wide as a starving kid's mouth. The problem is, you've patched it with everything. Moss, rags, straw, even your grandfather's old fur hat. But the wind still comes, smirking, slipping through like matters no limit. You stand, clutching your porridge bowl, eyes blazing. You're determined today. Either you stop the wind, or you'll shove your head into the hot ash to feel nothing anymore. You approach the door, rotten wood, a gap 2 fingers wide. No nails, no glue, just Viking grit, and the organic trash piled around the house. You step outside, wading through snow, to gather more wind-blocking material. You grab moss. It's wet, dry grass, brittle as uncooked noodles. An old sack, chewed by rats into a fishing net. But you don't give up. You return with a bag of moss, straw, torn cloth, and a single glove once belonging to your great-grandmother. You stuff them into the door crack, like gutting a statue. At first it seems to work. The air inside warms up. You even feel a bead of sweat roll down your spine. Or maybe it's water dripping from your grandmother's hair on the loft. Not sure. But then, like a triggered curse, the wind shifts. It stops blowing through the door crack. It finds a new path. You turn, and see it whistling through a small hole on the left, where a log was eaten by termites last year. A faint mist drifts in like a lost soul. You hiss again. Another hole. Your grandmother coughs into her blanket. Your brother pretends to sleep. The dog gives you a look. Your turn, buddy. You turn to your father. This tent's as torn as a warrior's shirt after 3 lifetimes unpatched. He shrugs. If it's standing, it's good. You realize Vikings don't fix houses. They endure them until they collapse. Then they build another from forest wood, or the tent of a neighbor dead from coughing. But you're not ready to die by wind. You upgrade your plan. You head behind the house, where a spare wall of hides was nailed up last season to block storms. It's now half buried in snow. You yank it out. Heavy, rank, but thick. You drag it back, tying it inside the door with rope like a windshield. It feels like hanging armor on the wall. And it works, surprisingly. For the first 3 minutes, the air warms, the wind's blocked. Everyone coughs less. Your brother stops whining every time he rolls over. You sit, rewarding yourself with a sip of warm water from melted ice. But then, from the roof, whoosh, hiss, swish, the wind's sneaking down the chimney. You're on the verge of losing it. You don't know if you're living in a house or a giant wind flute designed by Odin to punish tax-dodging sacrifices. You climb the roof. Wind slaps your face like a blade. The snow's frozen solid. You stuff hides into the old chimney mouth. A risky move, but you know if you don't, the fire will go out, and everyone's back to square one, cold as corpses but still forced to kindle. After 2 hours, you've sealed 3 wind gaps, 4 rat holes and 1 chimney. When you sit again, body trembling, hands numb, your grandmother looks at you and whispers, "You're a true Viking now." You're not sure if that's praise or a death omen. That night, everyone huddles close. No coughing, no hissing from cold. The fire burns steady. The tense air, for the first time, lacks the wind's howl. You smile, but deep down, you know this is temporary. Because in this land, the wind never sleeps long. It's waiting, watching, and next time, it might not come through the door. It might come through you, and you know it. Because the next morning, when you open your eyes, the first feeling isn't life. It's stiffness, not mental, physical. Your whole body's frozen like a fish fillet, hung by the hearth since last month. You turn your head. Your neck cracks. Not a broken bone, just frost on your nape snapping. You move your limbs slightly, then pull back, because the straw mat's lining is frozen solid. It's hard as armor, rough as sandpaper, and cold as you know death. You rise from the longhouse bed, like a warrior with a broken spine, stepping outside with one mission, find another layer. Not because you're underdressed, because you're still shaking. Despite wearing 3 layers, a hand-knit wool shirt from summer, a goatskin coat from your neighbor, who died of flu last month, and a large hide sewn from various foxes, some mismatched colors, some different species, but they all share one trait: not enough. You rummage in the storage corner, where your family keeps what they call winter gear, and outsiders call a pile of dead animal skins. You dig through a reindeer hide, 2 bear fur sleeves, just sleeves. The bear was eaten. A cloak fragment your father swears belonged to a great warrior, but it smells like it was used to wipe dead fish. You put it all on. At first, it's stifling. Then, like being buried alive. Finally, you stand. You're wearing 4 hides, 3 wool layers, a moss lining, and a hood heavy as a helmet. And you're still shaking. Not because you're weak, because the cold doesn't need you weak to crush you. It just needs you alive. And it'll gnaw slowly, starting with your fingers, then your nose, then your soul. You step outside. Wind slaps your face like a blow from the ice god. Your boots crunch with each step, not from deep snow, but from frozen mud cracking beneath. You look up. No sun, just a grey silver light, like cold ash falling from heavy clouds. You breathe deep and feel your lungs fill with tiny needles. Your breath turns to frost in half a second, then vanishes, like hope. You head to the livestock shed. The cows are shivering. The sheep huddle like a wall of warm meat. The lone chicken surviving since autumn stares at you like you're still alive, really. You herd them closer, then squeeze between. A classic tactic, share vital heat. But even standing between 2 cows huffing hot breath on your neck, you feel cold from within. Because Viking cold isn't something you can dress against. It pierces. It soaks into your skin like water into cloth. It slips through thick wool, heavy hides, even the fat you've tried to build up eating moldy fish porridge 3 times a day. You could wear a living wolf on your back and still shake like your house door when the north wind hits. When you return to the tent, your nose is red as a beet, your ears like frozen fish slices, and your feet are barely feet. You step inside, where everyone's gathered around the fire. Your grandmother looks at you, nodding approval. 4th layer, huh? You nod. Still cold, you hiss through clenched teeth. She points to a wooden chest. There's a 5th white fox hide, but you gotta win the game. You hesitate. What game? She smirks. Fight your brother. Winner wears it. You look at your brother, waist high, but sly as Loki. He grins, shirtless, daring you with his eyes. Come on, bro. And you know to stop shaking. You have to fight, not the weather, your family. That's Viking, where you wear your whole family to survive. And no matter if you wrap yourself in 4, 5, or 10 hides, the cold will still slither into your spine like a boneless snake. It doesn't need to break the door. It doesn't knock. It lives there, in you, forever. And the only thing that lets you briefly forget the icy snake coiling around your spine is the smell of dried fish being warmed by breaths on the other side of the fire. Your nose hasn't distinguished smells since you caught a whiff of burning goat hair last week, but your brain still has enough instinct to recognize it's breakfast time, or at least time for something resembling food. You drag yourself wrapped in 4 layers of hides, plus a layer of exhaustion toward the hearth. On a flat stone serving as a stove, a blackened iron pot emits a faint gurgling sound, the kind you hear when water doesn't boil but evaporates out of despair. Inside, something sludgy steams. Your mother stirs it. Porridge, she says. Not the kind of porridge you once knew. No chicken, no ginger, no onions, just leftover barley from last year, cooked in slightly murky well water and a bit of congealed fat from last week. And because it's too cold for the porridge to truly boil, it thickens like cooling cement. You grab a cracked wooden bowl, scoop it full. After scooping, you have to smack the porridge with your spoon to dislodge it. It doesn't flow, it falls like a cold lump of clay, reeking of sour fermentation and wood ash. You blow on it, but the steam doesn't dissipate. It lingers, as if hesitating. Am I even food? And then comes the main event. Dried fish, hung since September, air-dried through autumn, then frozen solid since early November. The fish has changed color, from gray to gray-black, then to a shade no longer in any dictionary. When you snap it in half, it cracks like a breaking branch. Not because it's crisp, because it's so dry, it's lost its soul. You drop the fish into the porridge. It doesn't sink, it floats. Like a refusal, I don't belong here. You stir it in, then scoop a big spoonful to your mouth. The temperature's too low to be hot, but cold enough to burn your lips with the spoon's chill. You hold the porridge in your mouth, chewing slowly, not because you're afraid to swallow, but because you have to chew porridge, the kind with the elasticity of clay and the smell of a foot soaked too long. You chew the fish, your teeth scrape bone. Viking fish isn't deboned, gutted, or seasoned. It just exists, and hopes you're hungry enough to ignore all culinary standards. Each chew releases a dry, moldy, slightly salty flavor on your tongue, like a memory you never wanted. But you eat, because you're alive. And living means eating, no matter what. Your father sits across, gnawing fish with his front teeth. Nobody talks. Talking wastes energy. Everyone chews like it's a ritual. Each spoonful is a step toward having enough strength to haul wood, gather moss, or simply not collapse from cold mid-outhouse trip. Your brother drops his spoon on the floor. He picks it up, blows off the ash, and keeps eating. Nobody reacts. Your floor isn't clean, but there's nothing left to infect. Bacteria died 3 months ago, frozen in the air. The dog sits behind, staring at you with longing eyes. You break off a piece of fish for it. It bites, then spits it out. Even it's not desperate enough. You look at it. It looks at you. Both of you understand, I'm sorry for thinking you're a dog, and I'm a human. Turns out, we're both victims of this winter. Your grandmother eats porridge without teeth. She sucks each spoonful like she's sucking youth. Her eyes glisten, either because the porridge is too spicy from impure rock salt, or because she's remembering the fish stew of her youth, when fish was still tender, and porridge didn't need a hammer to stir. Your mother adds more boiling water to the porridge, water just melted from ice, smelling of rotten wood and faint earth. The porridge thins but gets colder. You keep eating, trying not to think about how lunch will be porridge again, and dinner too. You glance out the tent's gap, where the sky remains ashen grey, like the aftermath of a god's cremation. Snow falls lightly, silently. The wind howls in the distance. You can't hear it clearly, but it hears you. It's waiting for you to step outside, and you know after this breakfast, you'll have to leave this flimsy safe zone to keep fighting for life. You slurp the last spoonful. Your tongue goes numb, your heart slows, but your stomach warms slightly, and your eyes blink softly, as if telling yourself, full enough to survive a few more hours. In the Viking world, breakfast isn't the start of a day. It's a temporary contract with life, and the price to sign it is rock-hard porridge and moldy dried fish. But then, like some bizarre cue your body has learned through countless surviving winters, just as the last spoon scrapes the bowl's bottom and your stomach feels a hint of warmth, your guts speak up. A slow, cold cramp stabs from your lower abdomen, spreading like a red alert. It's time. And you know exactly what that means. Not meditation, not rest, but bathroom time. It'd be no big deal if you lived in the 21st century with plumbing, porcelain toilets, scented paper, and soft close lids. But here, in the Nordic winter of some year, in the 1000s, the outhouse is a very loose concept. More precisely, it's a pit. Outside, in the snow, dug by hand, and around it, no walls, no roof, no privacy, except darkness, a faint stench from last month, and the judgmental gaze of Odin from the sky. You can't delay, your body won't allow it. You stand, still wrapped in hides, shuffle to the tent's corner, grab a wooden shovel and a roll of dry moss, your toilet paper substitute, and silently step outside, like you're marching to your own execution. Snow's thick, the air's brittle as glass. Each step crunches, sending cold shooting from the ground up your nose. The pit is about 10 meters from the house, next to a dead tree. From a distance, it's just a black square hole in a sea of white snow, but to you, it's a place of truth, where no one can pretend to be strong, where death lurks in tiny snowflakes and a well-timed gust when you drop your pants. You reach it, plant the shovel, and squat in the ancestral way, back slightly hunched, eyes scanning all directions, heart pounding like war drums, because you're not just facing the cold, you're facing the risk of slipping, a weasel leaping from the pit, or worse, freezing in place in a pose no one wants to be found in for history. You pull down the lower hide layer, quick, precise, trembling. The cold air instantly attacks your most sensitive parts, like 1,000 needles. You hiss through clenched teeth. No one hears, and probably no one wants to. In that moment, all notions of nobility, wealth, greatness, or insignificance vanish. It's just you, and the pit, and the hope that today isn't the day you die from diarrhea in a blizzard. You do what needs doing, fast, clean, no overthinking. Every second sitting is a second closer to eternal frost. Then you use the moss, hard, rough, wet, possibly moldy, but you don't care. You just want to stand without cramping or losing a toe. You pull up your pants. The shovel falls. You pick it up. Your hands are now 2 blocks of wood. You stagger back. Behind you the pit sinks back into silence, as if nothing happened. But you know, and it knows. You two just shared an intimate, haunting moment. You reach the tent, opening the door with your shoulder, because your hands are numb. Everyone glances at you with deep understanding. No one speaks. Everyone here has walked that path, where you leave dignity by the snow pit and pick up survival with 2 trembling hands. You peel off your outer layer, sit by the fire, your skin's flushed. Your eyes are slightly dazed. Your mother pours you a cup of warm water. You don't thank her, you just drink. Your grandmother nods, still alive, and here, that's high praise. Your brother whispers, "Did you see the black shadow behind the tree?" You glare at him. Not today, you just beat nature. You're not in the mood for ghost stories, but deep down, you felt something moving, or just imagination, doesn't matter. The only thing you know for sure is you'll have to do this again, tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after. In the Viking winter, you don't just live, you defecate in snow, wind, and the risk of freezing, like a warrior. And if someone asks, what's so hard about going outside, invite them behind the tent, dig a pit, strip, and let the ice god decide if they've got the guts to be Nordic. But even if you're lucky enough to survive this morning's physiological expedition, another enemy awaits beyond the threshold, the ground. More precisely, the ice under your heels. It makes no sound, gives off no chill, offers no warning, until you slip and soar like a soul who hasn't settled last life's debts. Everyone here knows winter doesn't kill with a knife or stab you in the back. It just tilts slightly, glints a little, and then you fall. No screams. Just a soft thud, like swatting a fly, except this time, you're the fly, and the table is primordial ice, as hard as rock. That morning, you're tasked with fetching water from the frozen stream behind the village. Just a few steps. Easy. Except those steps cross the backyard, where 3 months of compacted snow have formed a mirror-smooth ice slicker than a drunk Viking merchant's promise. You step out in old fur-lined boots, brimming with resolve. You believe, if you walk fast, don't look down, and avoid the sheep dung, you'll be fine. Wrong. First step, normal. Second step, slight slip. Third step, you're no longer a walking creature, you're a flying statue, a Viking version of a swan, slipping on a banana peel. It happens in 1.5 seconds, but long enough to relive your entire life, from the first time you held an axe, to the first time you used the outhouse without shame. Then you land, on your butt, your back, your neck. A crack sounds from somewhere, not sure if it's snow, bone, or your faith in homemade boots. You lie there, eyes on the sky, mouth open, puffing faint vapor. No one saw, no one helps, because everyone knows, whoever slips, deals. You get up, back aching, head buzzing, and find the water bucket 5 meters away, nestled in a frozen thorn bush. You crawl over, grab it, and swear that when you return, you'll smear ash on this path, like an exorcism ritual. But it's not the only time. Every winter day is a deadly balancing act. Ice isn't just in the yard, it's on the steps, the roof, the log you use as a chair, even inside the outhouse. Yes, where you nearly died yesterday. Each step is a contract with gravity, and Vikings don't get to choose the pen. Once you heard about a guy from the next village who fell in the market while haggling over a goat's price. He hit his head on the frozen goat head and was out for 3 hours. When he woke, he thought he was in Valhalla. He cried, not from joy, but because he realized he was still alive and had to pay for the goat. Ice kills kids too. They run, throw snow, play who slides farthest dies first. They don't know fear until one slides into a tree and loses 2 front teeth. His grandmother said, now he's grown. Even animals aren't safe. The village's only chicken, nicknamed Survivor Warrior for lasting 3 winters, slid off the tent roof into a water pit one day. That was the last time anyone heard it crow. You develop a drunk monk walk, short steps, splayed feet, hunched back, serious face. Anyone seeing you thinks you're heading to the outhouse. And honestly, the fear feels similar. You learn to probe the path with a stick, test slickness with your butt, after dozens of real-world tests, and you never leave the house without a plank or a handful of ash to scatter. Still, some days you get careless. Those rare nice mornings, meaning less freezing than usual, make you briefly forget death's nature. You walk faster, you skip tying your boots, you smile, mistake, you slip again. This time, you hit a tree with your head. You wake to the smell of dried fish and your grandmother's voice. It's still breathing. Your mother sighs. Next time, make it wear a pot. Your father nods. It'll learn, or go lame. You learn, not from books, from your tailbone. You understand in this land, the ground doesn't love you. It doesn't catch you when you fall. It hits you. It freezes you. And sometimes, it keeps you forever. You can survive sickness, hunger, loneliness. But slipping on ice in one careless moment is how the Viking winter ends a life fastest. No horns, no drums, just a crack, and a silence blanketed in snow. That's how the Viking winter sends someone off, gently, coldly, without time to scream. But if slipping is the quickest way to die, to survive longer, You must master the one thing that fights it all, fire. And trust me, keeping it alive, through nights, winds and careless snores, is harder than keeping yourself alive. You think keeping a fire is just piling wood and waiting for it to burn. Oh no, here, fire doesn't burn. It endures. It gasps. It wheezes like an old friend with tuberculosis, and every gust through the tent's cracks slaps it in the face, and you have to sit by, glaring, guarding it all night, like a neurotic nursemaid. Wood? Not readily available. Everything burnable. Already burned. You've burned tables, chairs, wooden spoons, door handles, even the spare outhouse seat. Lately, you've eyed the ancestral shield. It's wide, flat, and would burn evenly. Every morning, you go out to gather dry organic scraps, bark bits, broken antlers, or if lucky, an unidentified small animal carcass, all collected, dried on the tent roof, and prayed over so the fire god isn't offended by the fuel's quality. At night, fire is everything's center. Your whole family, 10 people, 1 dog, 1 oddly surviving chicken, lies around it like a wheel of flesh. The youngest gets to lie closest. The elderly are at the edge. Anyone who snores loudly or spills water gets pushed out like a stray satellite. And in the middle, you tasked with keeping the fire alive. You have an iron stick, a pile of hot ash, a few damp logs, and hope every hour you wake, poke the ash, stoke the fire, add wood. If you fall asleep, just for an hour, everything goes cold. Not gradually, instantly. Cold doesn't wait for alarms. It creeps in like a thief, kisses your ear, then chokes you without warning. Once, you forgot to tend. The fire died. You woke from cold. Not your limbs, your breath. In a hazy moment, you thought you were floating on an icy river, then realized you were in the house, face purple, like frozen raw fish. You crawled up, trembling, digging through ash. Nothing left. Your eyes blurred. You thought, this is it. But then from somewhere, your grandmother handed you a bundle of dry hair, real hair, hers from youth. You tossed it in. Miraculously, it burned. The fire revived. You looked at her. She winked. Here, people don't spare hair. They spare heat. You learn to love fire, not like a poet, like a slave. Fire becomes the center of faith. When it burns, you believe you'll live another night. When it fades, your soul shrinks with each dying ember. You remember borrowing fire from a neighbor's house once, just 4 tents away, but wind kicked up halfway. Your torch went out. You returned. Your mother chased you back out with a broom. This time, you wrapped the torch in fat-soaked rags, tied with deer sinew, holding fire in your mouth, like a fire-breathing warrior. You made it back, and the fire lived. Your mother wept, not from emotion, but because if you'd let it die again, she'd have to burn the wooden box holding her great-grandmother's dowry. Some nights, you stay awake. The fire's too weak, the wood too wet. You sit by the hearth, eyes drooping. Each time you nod off, you hear the wind howl, the dog whimper, and feel something, not human, watching from the door crack. You grip your axe handle with one hand, stir ash with the other, not for fear of thieves, but fear the fire sees you, and leaves. Keeping fire isn't just keeping heat, it's keeping spirit. The tent has no light, no music, no laughter. Fire is the only thing moving, proof that time still passes, hearts still beat, and the world hasn't fully frozen. When you look into the fire, you see yourself, small, fragile, but stubborn, and you realize you don't live for fire, you live by fire, like your ancestors did. And when you're old, trembling, wrapped in a straw blanket, by dying embers, you'll hand your hair to your grandchild, and hope they won't fall asleep. Because in Viking life, the deepest sleep might be the last. But if you think keeping fire alive means you'll survive, you're wrong. Fire keeps you warm. To keep you alive, you need food. And when porridge thins to Odin's tears, dried fish is just bones, and your brother starts eyeing the dog with a hard-to-read look, there's only one choice: hunt. Outside. In the snow. Alone. That morning your mother looks into the porridge pot. Nothing but a frothy scum, and a chicken bone sucked thrice. She turns to you, wordless, placing a rusty spear, and a small hide sack for anything edible into your hands. Her eyes say it all. Go, or we all starve. You step out of the tent, bow on shoulder, spear in hand, 2 hide layers wrapped around you. Wind slaps your face like Loki's mocking hand. Hunting. In this weather? Who do you think you are? But you don't answer. You just lower your head, stepping into the thick snow covering the path. One slow, deep, desperate step at a time. Snow's waist-high today. Where wind blows hard, it's chest deep. In the hollows near the forest, you know some spots reach your neck. Each step sinks you into a white world, like it's trying to swallow you, starting with your feet. You can't run, can't walk fast. Each step drags half your body. Your boots are useless. Snow spills in, numbing your feet, then aching like something's gnawing inside. Wind blasts, whistling in your ears, like the howls of starved souls at the village's edge. But you keep going, not from courage, because behind you are your brother, grandmother, mother, and a dog getting skinnier by the day. You enter the forest, no animal tracks, just wind. Dry branches snap under your hand. Snow from branches falls down your neck, seeping through your clothes like icy drips down your spine. You stop, hold your breath, listen. A distant sound. Maybe a deer, maybe an owl, maybe the wind through your chest. You draw your bow, nock an arrow. Your hand shakes, not from fear, because blood stopped reaching your fingers. You go deeper. Each step sinks further. Soon you're eye level with the snow. Each breath freezes on your lashes. You can't feel your nose. You don't know if you're walking or sliding past existence's edge. Then you see it. A rabbit. Not big, not fat, but with a heartbeat. And that's all you need. You hold your breath, raise the bow. Your hand shakes like the wind's lifting it. The arrow flies and misses. The rabbit bolts. You don't cry out, don't groan. You just slump, sitting in the forest, in snow, in wind, in the absolute silence of failure. You want to sleep, right there, just a bit. Close your eyes, but you know sleep is death. Right now the fire in you waits for your choice. Keep going or fade. Then a sound. Close. Heavy. You turn. A deer. Big. Slow. Digging snow for dry grass. You don't trust your eyes. Your hand grazes your last arrow. You draw. Aim. Your heart pounds. Eyes wide. You shoot. The arrow flies, lodging in the deer's leg. It startles, roars, but can't run. You charge. A walking snow heap. Spear in hand. Heart screaming. If you don't kill it, your family starves. Because of you. You stab. Once. Twice. The deer falls, blood spurting on snow, red as victory. You kneel, hands shaking, body stiff, eyes tearing, not for killing an animal, but for buying a few more days of life for your family and yourself. You carve the meat, tie it, drag it back. The return feels twice as long, but you don't feel tired, you don't feel cold, you just feel duty. And far off, the faint light from the tent, fires burning. They're waiting. You return at midnight. Deer blood clots on your hands. Your mother says nothing, just takes the knife. Your brother jumps to hug you. Your grandmother nods, whispering. True warrior, you sit by the hearth. Flames flicker, reflecting eyes aged by winters in a single day. But you don't care. You just want to eat and sleep. A dreamless sleep. Because tomorrow snow still reaches your neck. And maybe you'll hunt again. But before that, you need to do something more sacred than any god-offering ritual. Cook the meat. Sounds simple, but you never truly grasp the Nordic winter's cruelty until you try, stabbing a knife into deer meat, frozen as hard as a tombstone. The next morning, while the family huddles like unburied mummies, you crawl up, stumbling to the meat hung outside. Butchered last night, preserved Viking style, hung in the open, letting snow cover and wind blow, hoping the gods don't steal it by morning. You pull the meat down. It doesn't fall. It snaps. Snaps like a dry branch. You try breaking it. Can't. Use a knife. The knife slips, nearly stabbing your thigh. You bash the meat on a rock. The rock chips. The meat's unscathed. You groan, dragging it into the tent, where the fire flickers with the last of last night's kindness. Your mother looks at you, eyes dry. Cut it and cook. You exhale sharply, pointing at the meat block, a winter relic. She snorts, tossing you a small axe. You get it. No cooking, just chiseling. You set the meat on a log, swing the axe. The meat bounces, the axe recoils, your shoulder stings. You try again. Each swing is a symphony of hunger, cold, and hopelessness. After nearly half an hour, you hack off a fist-sized piece. You sniff it. No smell. Either it's clean, or your nose is frozen for good. You toss the meat into a pot of barely warm water, heated by something like collective breath. With wood running low, you don't dare burn hot. Everyone sits around, breathing on the pot, to keep it above freezing. Your grandmother even suggests sitting on the lid for warmth, quickly vetoed for hygiene and religious reasons. The meat starts thawing after 3 hours. After 4, you can poke a spoon through without a clank, but it's still not tender. In the Viking world, stewed means you don't need a hammer to chew. Your mother adds salt, rock hard, mined last summer, stored in a clay jar with rat droppings. You add greens, wilted wild cabbage, found under snow by the sheep pen. Your brother begs for seasoning. You toss him a sprig of something aromatic, actually an unidentified root, hoping it's not toxic. 4 hours later, the pot simmers. The family gathers like villagers awaiting a relic's awakening. Everyone breathes heavily on the pot. No one speaks, no one laughs, just growling stomachs and hopeful eyes. When the first meaty smell rises, real hot, sweet, fatty, everyone inhales like devotees meeting a prophet. Your eyes water, not from emotion, from smoke. But in that moment, you feel alive, not just biologically, alive with purpose to cook, to eat, to swallow the last bit of heat in a world freezing around you. You scoop meat into a bowl. It's tender as a dream, meaning you only need back teeth and some imagination. You chew slowly, savoring each fiber. Your mouth's numb, tongue stiff, but your heart blazes. This isn't a meal, it's a victory. The meal passes in silence. No one swallows fast. No one knows when another pot of meat will come. After eating, everyone lies down, circling the fire, stomachs full, fire warm, wind howling outside. But inside you hear only steady breathing. You close your eyes, hand on your stomach. In a hazy dream, you're cooking in summer, a lavish illusion. Then you wake, because the fire's dying, and frozen meat awaits. And tomorrow, you'll cook again. With an axe, with breath, with everything you've got left of life. But before you can stretch to stoke the fire, something smacks your face lightly. A foot, not yours, not your brother's, but your neighbor's. More precisely, the foot of your distant cousin-in-law, related through your father's uncle's wife, who dropped by for a few nights 3 weeks ago and still hasn't left. They're pressed tight against you, squeezed between you and your grandmother, stealing the fox hide you use as a blanket. And you suddenly recall a horrific truth that winter has numbed you to. This tent is barely 10 square meters, housing 12 people, 1 dog, and absolutely no such thing as privacy. You lie there, still as dried fish, realizing you're plastered against the sweaty back of your uncle, who slept without removing his grease-soaked sheepskin. Each of his breaths hits your neck like a curse. Just above your head, someone's mumbling in their sleep, in Old Norse, about herring and snow. Your brother lies crosswise, head on your stomach, feet kicking your grandmother's face. She snores steadily, like an ancient wind instrument, while the dog burrows its head between your legs for warmth. Space? None. Air? Barely. Sensation? A mix of claustrophobia, despair, and foot odor. Every time you want to roll over, it's an international negotiation. You must curl up, tuck your legs, twist your shoulders, dodge elbows, avoid anyone's butt, and calculate the vibration to not douse the fire. Move too hard, and your uncle wakes up to retell how he once slept with 5 Viking warriors in a boat, and no one died of suffocation. You don't want to hear that story again. 7 times this month is enough. You remember one night, a legendary night, when the tent held only 5 people, a brief slice of paradise. You sprawled out, arms flung wide, head on dry straw. You nearly cried from joy. But 3 days later, a cousin from the next village whose tent burned down, 3 female cousins fleeing abusive husbands, and a wandering seer, no one knows why he's here, all moved in. Just temporary, they said. You smiled, like someone about to faint. At night, the tent becomes a giant mass of bodies. Breaths rise, condense on the ceiling, form droplets and drip onto someone's face. Once you woke, thinking it was raining indoors. It wasn't. It was sweat condensing from human vapor. You live like fish in a salting barrel, except fish get to die, while you still have to rise, tend the fire, cook meat, and try not to lose your mind. Privacy, a luxury. No private room, no my corner. Everyone claims the exact space their body occupies, and the rest belongs to the next person. You once tried making a private zone by hanging cloth around your sleeping spot. The next morning, it was the communal hand towel. You learn to change clothes under blankets while people discuss you. You learn to blow your nose into moss and hide it under the blanket to avoid teasing. You learn to breathe shallowly, smile lightly, and never ask, who just farted? Because that question only opens a pit of grudges. Even personal hygiene is a stealth mission. You wait until midnight, when everyone's passed out, to slip from the human pile and crawl out into the snow like an escapee. But no matter how far you go, someone will say when you return, "Took you a while. What were you doing?" You don't answer, because no one needs to know, and no one really wants to. Yet, in that misery, something strange happens. You start to adapt. You feel reassured by the steady snoring. You feel something's missing if you wake one morning without a foot in your face. And when the dog doesn't burrow into your blanket tonight like usual, you worry it's sick. You listen to everyone's breathing to know they're alive. In a space where every centimeter of flesh belongs to the collective, you learn a new definition of family, not a place of love, but a place with enough room to huddle close and not freeze to death. And when the first light of day seeps through the tent's cracks, you open your eyes, yawn softly, feel an elbow on your cheek, a foot on your stomach, and your grandmother's bony back pressed against your shoulder. You smile, not from happiness, but because you're still alive. In this cramped, sweltering, crowded tent, with nothing resembling privacy, you know, as long as you hear breathing, groaning, the dog licking its paws, and the creaking wood, winter hasn't beaten you yet. And that's enough for another day. But every day here is a tense wait for nightfall, because you know by day you might slip, go hungry, break a bone, but at night, if you're careless for even a moment, you might never open your eyes again. And this time, it's not death, but your eyes freezing shut, glued like two wet hides sealed by the wind's icy grip. That's the bitter lesson you learned in the second week of this winter. You were exhausted. Too much work, too much snow. You fell hard, and just wanted to crawl into the straw, pull the blanket over your head, and forget everything. You fell asleep, face exposed, hood slipped off. That night, wind slithered through the door crack like a patient assassin. It brushed your cheeks, crept to your forehead, and settled on your eyelids. You dreamed a freezing dream, wind piercing your soul. The next morning, you tried to open your eyes, or rather, you couldn't. Your eyelids were stuck together. Not metaphorically, physically. Your tears, scarce, cold, lonely, had frozen overnight, turning into icy glue sealing your lids like a lid on a cold iron pot. You groaned in pain, trying to force them open with hard blinks. Mistake, your lashes snapped off. The skin around your eyes bled. Your grandmother had to warm her hands by the fire and press them to your eyes in waves of heat, so you could slowly peel your face from itself. Since then, you sleep like someone about to be buried alive, sealed, damp, tilted. Before bed, you smear a thin layer of the greasiest, foulest animal fat around your eyes, like a frost warrior prepping for battle. The fat keeps warmth, moisture, and a barrier for your lashes. It's not pleasant, but better than prying your eyes open with a knife. Come morning, you don't sleep flat anymore. That's for the rich or the dead. You curl like a shrimp, hands pressed to your face, head in 3 hoods, face wrapped in wool, sometimes buried in your brother's armpit, the warmest spot in the tent, and scariest if he's dreaming something weird. Sometimes, the dog nestles its head near your face. It stinks, but it's warm. And here, warmth, cleanliness. That's the golden rule. You learn to gauge air temperature by your breath. If you exhale and the vapor vanishes, good. If it clings to your brows, careful. If it forms droplets on your blanket, alarm. But if you see no vapor, you're probably too late. Then you leap up, stir ash, add wood, pound pillows, tug your hair, Do anything to wake the fire before you sleep forever. Some nights, you can't sleep from the snoring, wind, groans, and chattering teeth, like someone's chewing gravel. But you're glad. It means everyone's alive. Noise is the soundtrack of survival. Only when the tent falls utterly silent do you fear, because silence in this winter often heralds death, or at least someone about to be pried from their blanket with a shovel. You tried counting sheep to sleep, but your sheep were eaten last month. Now you count blankets, hides, coughs, and the fire's crackles. Strangely, those rhythms become a lullaby, and as you drift to sleep with fat on your face, head on someone's thigh, nose against the dog's back, arms around your brother's ribs, feet tucked into the spare wood sack, you realize you're not sleeping. You're dodging death in the softest way possible. The next morning, if you open your eyes and they open, no sticking, no bleeding, no stinging, no broken lashes, you smile, not from happiness, but because you can still see, and in the Viking winter, just opening your eyes is a victory. But that victory barely has time to settle before it's snuffed out, literally, by a truth as cold as this land. The firewood's gone, not running low, not enough for tonight, but gone. The wood chest is empty. The tent corner, where reserves were stacked, holds only moldy scraps and the smell of rat urine. Your mother stares into that void, like it's death's abyss. Your father is silent, stroking his beard. Your grandmother sighs, whispering, "It's come again." That "come again" isn't unfamiliar. It happens every year, midwinter, when autumn's stockpiled wood is burned, dry forest timber is scavenged clean, and the ground lies buried in chest-deep snow. It's when Viking families have no choice but to burn their own lives, meaning start burning anything flammable, be it tools, furniture, or heirlooms. You sit, watching the fire dwindle, heart heavy. The flames burn feebly, shrinking like a starved cat. You toss in the last piece, the handle of the shovel once used to dig the outhouse pit. The fire flares briefly, lighting the tent, then fades like hope sucked away by wind. The tent sinks into the dim glow of silent panic. Your father stands, walks to the chest of family heirlooms. He lifts the lid, pulling out a small oak altar, hand-carved by your great-grandfather. Everyone holds their breath. No one dares stop him. He cradles the altar, sets it on the ashen hearth, and releases it like a farewell. Forgive us, ancestors. Today, we burn even faith. The fire flares again. The scent of burning oak fills the air. Your grandmother sobs, but it's unclear if it's for loss or warmth. You feel nothing except bitterness. In this winter, everything's just fuel. The next day, it's your turn to gather burnable assets. You rummage in the shed, broken chair, burn, old bed plank, burn, mother's jewelry box, burn. You pause long before your brother's childhood wooden puppet. It stares with charcoal-drawn eyes, lifeless and pitiful. You pick it up, heavy, dry, good kindling. Your brother walks in, says nothing, just looks. You lower your hand. Not today, but soon. Wind outside howls, dousing any lingering hope like a bucket of water. Cold seeps through every wooden crack. The fire weakens. Each ash flare marks another sacrifice. You burn the doorstep, the door handle, the bucket once used for stream water. Your house shrinks, literally, not from huddling in cold, but from each wooden piece turning to ash. One night, you burn the window frame. Wind pours in, but everyone accepts it. Freezing beats suffocating. You start calculating, not with logic, but instinct. What burns? What hasn't burned? What must be kept? And what, despite reluctance, must be let go? Sometimes, you eye the axe. It's wood, solid handle. But if you burn it, what'll chop wood tomorrow, if the gods allow? One dark evening, you stare at the chair legs under your grandmother. Good wood, old, hoar, dry. But if you burn them, she'll lie on the ground, and you're not sure she'll get up. Arguments erupt. Small, whispered, but lethal. Burn your box. It's just sitting there. That's my dowry. Dowry won't keep you warm. You watch your parents bicker over a barrel lid and realize cold doesn't just erode flesh, it tears hearts. You start kindling with oddities. Dry sheep wool, ropes, dried moss. Once, you burned an old hand-drawn map, marking the route from your village to the big market. Your father saw, but said nothing. He just pushed more pages into the fire. then wiped his eyes with his sleeve. One morning, you step outside, looking at the tent from afar. It's not its original shape. The corners dismantled, the roof's gouged, walls have holes. Your house is slowly vanishing, traded for each warm night. Then one day, there's nothing left to burn. No wood, no table, no past. The fire dies. No one cries. No one speaks. Everyone just sits in absolute silence, staring at the cold ash like it's the earth's core. You huddle by the coals, hands touch stone. Your face is cold, your eyes dry. And you understand. This winter doesn't kill with one blow. It chokes you with poverty, memories, and choices, bit by bit, item by item, until you must ask what's left to throw in the fire, besides myself. And the answer perhaps comes tomorrow, when light fades, when ash covers the floor, and you, like every Viking warrior before, must choose go out or lie in the last warm ash. But whether you choose to go or stay, whether you've anything left to burn or are just a half-breathing shadow in the dark, you can't escape this. No sunlight, not less sun, not cloudy days, but gone entirely. For days, weeks, sometimes over a month, not a single ray pierces the ash-grey sky blanketing the north. You wake and realize, morning, noon, dusk, night, all one cold, ashen grey. No dawn, no sunset, just a deadly light, not harsh, not warm, not clear, just enough to see your tent hasn't collapsed. Your shadow has no shape, and snow still falls from eternity to despair. At first, you looked outside, hoping for daylight. After weeks, you gave up, because what you called daylight was just when the wind stopped howling long enough to see the nearest tree. And night, it doesn't arrive like an event. It's already there, and you slowly can't tell if you're awake or dreaming, living or surviving in the dream of someone already dead. Your shadow no longer casts. The only light left is the hearth fire, and you know it's nearly out. When you step outside, wind doesn't make you shudder anymore. Not because you're used to it, because your body's starting to lose feeling for darkness. It's assimilating. Your grandmother says, in my time, the sun only set for a month. Now, it's gone for good. You don't ask if she misses it. Who could remember what warm sunlight feels like? You vaguely recall it stung your eyes, made you sweat, melted snow. But now, snow doesn't melt. It piles, thicker, each day, as if the sky no longer rains, no longer brings spring breezes. Only one season remains. Oblivion. You lose time's concept. No sun, no shadows, no reliable motion beyond your heartbeat and the breath of the person beside you. Sometimes, you sleep an hour but think it's a day. Sometimes, you stay awake all night, but feel you just blinked. Once, you dozed after eating, woke to find everyone still lying there, silent, faint in the cold ash light. You panicked, thought they were dead. They weren't. Just, nothing had changed. You remember a habit, sitting on a log outside, eyes closed, face turned to the sky at dawn. You don't do that anymore. The log was burned last week, and dawn is now an abstract idea, like justice, or a day off. Your brother asks, when will the sun rise again? You don't answer, you just look into his eyes. In them you see yourself last year, hoping, counting days, thinking, just a few more weeks. But when time has no unit to measure, you survive one way. Stop waiting. Your mother once stuck a stick in the snow to track shadows. She checked daily. Then one day she stopped. The stick stands there. Snow covers its tip, then its shaft, then half its height, then buries it. No shadow. The stick's gone, and no one cares. In that vast darkness, you hear sounds you never noticed before. Your heartbeat, boots scraping snow, wind through your spine's hollows, soft snoring like cracking wood, and your own thoughts, when you no longer know what you're thinking. You once carved on wood, die 41, no sun, but that wood was burned, and you don't remember anymore. Your tent changes color, not from fire, but from dim light turning everything ash gray, like fading memories. Everyone becomes a vague shadow, eyes cloud over. No one holds another's gaze long, maybe to avoid seeing themselves fading in someone else. Then one morning, you wake earlier than usual. Something's off. You don't know what. The air smells different, not warm, but less cold. You step outside, eyes squinting from pointless habit, and you see, not the sun, but a thin, faint streak of light glimmering on the horizon, where snow and sky blend. You turn to call inside, but you stop, because you're afraid, if you speak, it'll vanish. So you stand, staring, hands cold, lips trembling, but heart warming, and you understand winter's still here, long. But that one streak of light, though thin as hair, fragile as hearth smoke, brief as breath, is enough to keep you going another day. A day without sun, but with a reason to wait for its return. But while you stand, clinging to that faint light, like the last breath of a drowning man, your body silently drains hope from within, not with hunger pangs, but with the absence of things you never knew you needed so badly. Light, greens, fresh fruit, bluntly, vitamins. And soon, you'll learn how brutal it feels when your body becomes a battlefield between vitamin deficiency and overload of mold. At first, it's just dry skin, chapped lips, a blistered tongue. You think normal, who doesn't get this in winter? But then your gums bleed. Each bite of dried fish or frozen deer meat makes your gums ooze blood, like they're under attack by bacteria you're too weak to fight. You stop smiling, not from sadness, but because smiling makes your teeth ache, as if they're falling out with time. Then you notice your hands trembling uncontrollably, not from cold, but because your muscles are wasting away. Your body bruises inexplicably, legs swell, knees ache. You rise each morning, feeling like someone beat you with a club all night. You limp, like a blind old man, groping for lost calcium. Your mother mutters, "Cold's in your bones," but she knows, you know, everyone knows. Lack of vitamins C, D, and nearly every other letter. No greens, no fruit, no sun. Nothing nourishes you but fat from moldy fish, dried game, thin porridge, and wilting hope. You're not sick from germs. You're withering because your body has nothing to rebuild itself. And as your body rots from the inside out, the only thing thriving is mold. Mold everywhere. In damp wooden walls, on clotheslines, in unsun-dried wooden bowls, even on blankets, speckled patches, like time's stains but alive, dancing like tiny parasites. At first, you scrubbed them, then you ignored them. Now you're used to it. You sleep in dampness, breathe mold, eat amid mold, eat amid mold. Once, you picked up dried meat, saw a faint white spot. You flipped it black. You asked your father. He frowned. Cut off the black. The rest is fine. You obeyed. What choice did you have? Then one night your brother spiked a fever, red eyes, nosebleeds. Your grandmother blamed cold, but you saw moldy patches on the hide shirt he'd worn since winter began. You burned the shirt. He cried. You didn't apologize, because you knew sometimes what kills in winter isn't cold, but what lives on what you keep. You start seeing the tent differently, not a shelter, a biological stew of decay. Dampness, dead skin, leftover meat, rotten wood, wet straw, unsun-dried gear, unwashed items, all mixed, simmering, rising breath by breath, seeping into your lungs each time you inhale deeply to feel alive. You once had a sense of smell, now everything smells the same, damp, moldy, rotting. You once had hearing, now you only hear your joints creaking. You once had healthy skin, now each scratch sheds white dust like autumn snow. You're a Viking zombie, but must keep living, because your grandmother's alive, your brother breathes, and your parents remind you daily. Your great-grandfather ate dirt. You hear and smile, with half your mouth, because the other half's ulcerated. You smear animal fat on the cracks. It doesn't heal, just stings less. You try standing in snow at noon, hoping to soak sun like southerners, but there's no sun, just flurries and a flock of circling crows. You notice oddities, someone muttering nonsense at midnight, another laughing alone, someone whispering, "The sky will brighten, it'll brighten." You know it's not hallucinations, it's signs of vitamin lack, of light lack, of hope lack, of reality crumbling like cracked ice. And you, amid it all, keep going, kindling fire, breaking frozen meat, cooking porridge, burning things, keeping eyes from freezing shut, scratching, without tearing skin, trying to recall something fresh. But nothing's fresh, except mold. Mold lives, mold thrives, mold claims every corner, and in your mind, a thought rises. Mold is winter's true victor. You laugh. This time it's real, because maybe, in the Viking winter, when everything withers, rots, vanishes, only two things remain: human will and mold spores, and you're not sure which is stronger, but at least you're still here, cracked eyes, trembling hands, loose teeth, but counting breaths. In an endless winter, you keep living, not because you're strong, but because you haven't fallen yet, and sometimes that's enough. But when your body is worn to tatters, when mold has claimed every plank crevice, every breath, every fold of thought, then it's your mind's turn to waver. Each passing day feels like living in a repeating dream, with no beginning, no end, no day or night, no new dawn or fresh hope. And when reality grows too bleak to cling to, you turn to the only thing left in a Viking's heart, mythology. Not as devout faith, but as the last mental straw in a frozen ocean. You start retelling the old tales your grandmother mutters nightly, not to learn, but to keep your mind from cracking like ice under a hammer. When the sky's too dark, you think of Thor, god of thunder, battling frost giants at the horizon, trying to pry a sliver of light through the clouds. When all around you is mold and wheezing groans, you picture Loki pranking the village, hiding the sun just to see how the living dead react. You start believing this cold isn't natural, it's a test from the gods. A survival game where every Viking is chosen to prove the worth of their kin. Each time you grip an axe in the ice, you're no longer you. You're Odin's heir, wielding ancestral weapons, staring into the blizzard, as if facing fate itself. Even the dog, gaunt fur matted in clumps, is no longer a dog. In half-dreaming, half-waking visions, you see it as Fenrir, the wolf tamed by Tyr, to guard you through the dark. When someone dies from cold, hunger, a slip that cracks their skull on stone, or mold poisoning, you no longer cry. You say, they've been called to Valhalla. You don't know what Valhalla's like, but you imagine it has private beds, warm light, mold-free deer meat, and endless firewood. Your grandmother, too weak to lift a spoon, still murmurs, we're children of frost, but our blood's still red, because it's the blood of gods. You listen, not arguing. In winter, science doesn't warm you. Imagination might. You tell your brother stories of the radiant Bifrost bridge to the god's realm, of Ragnarok, when all will burn and be reborn, of Viking warriors who died, but will return, led by Odin, riding wolves, bringing light to survivors. His eyes widen, swallowing each word like warm porridge. Whether it's real porridge or words, what matters is it quiets his stomach and warms his heart. Everyone in the tent has a favorite god. Your mother worships Frigg, goddess of the hearth, though the tent's more like a communal coffin. Your father mutters prayers to Freya, god of crops, though snow buries every field. You default to Thor, not for his hammer, but because his rage makes you feel less alone. You hang a wood scrap on the wall, crudely sketching Jormungandr, the world serpent. You tell everyone, if the snake moves, winter's nearly over. One morning, your grandmother points to its charcoal eyes, faded. See, it's stirring. Everyone believes, no one objects. Sometimes, believing in fiction is the only thing keeping you from ending yourself with a wooden spoon. You start small rituals, tapping the tent frame 3 times before stepping out, whispering, let me live another day before sleep, scattering ash around the hearth to mark sacred ground. No one laughs. No one finds it absurd. Every odd act is understood as a way to keep your mind intact. Then, on a night eerily quiet, no wind, no chattering teeth, no sleep talking, you dream of a blazing light, tearing open the sky, shining on your face. You jolt awake, heart pounding like war drums. No light, but you see a faint red streak on the horizon, real enough to doubt. You smile. You whisper, Thor's swinging his hammer. You turn to your brother, whispering like it's a secret. Tomorrow, there might be sunlight. He doesn't reply, but he squeezes your hand, and you know, sun or not, your mind hasn't cracked yet. Because in a winter that tears mind and bone, mythology isn't just children's stories. It's the last anchor to reality. A reality that, without God's tales, would kill your mind before the snow kills your body. But even with Odin, Thor, or Fenrir guarding your mind, another enemy gnaws at everyone's spirit in the tent. Hour by hour, utter boredom. When everything repeats, until even snores cycle. When no one bothers retelling stories, because every tale's been told 17 times. When the fire's dim, the smell's foul, the porridge thin, and dreams are gone. The only thing enticing enough in entertainment is conflict. And if your tent has someone like your brother-in-law, sorry in advance, he's the first you want to punch. Your brother-in-law hasn't done anything wrong. That's the irony. He doesn't steal wood, eat others' portions, or bother kids. But he exists too much. He breathes loudly, tells unfunny jokes, always snags the spot by the fire each night, though he arrives after you. And worst, he never shows weakness. In a world where everyone's breaking, his constant smiling, beard combing, and if it were me, I'd do it differently. Whenever something goes wrong, is enough to make you want to tap his head with an axe, to see if I can do it differently. The breaking point comes on the 100th sunless day. The tent's damp, moldy, silent. A child cries, dreaming of last winter's dead cat. You're kindling the fire with fish bones and fallen hair. Everyone's quiet, exhausted. Then your brother-in-law, like a god of destruction from yesterday's myth, stands, stretches, and says, "Do something to kill the boredom." A simple sentence, but no one needs to hear it now. You turn, slowly asking, "Do something like what?" He shrugs, "Arm wrestle, or a light fight. Just for fun." You stare, he smiles, and you don't know when you stood. The first punch isn't hard, just an opener, but its sound, the thud, echoing in a tent filled only with breaths and wind, wakes everyone. The second punch isn't light, and it begins. No one stops it. Because honestly, everyone wants a little blood, not much, just enough to remind them, we're still human, still angry, still feeling. You and your brother-in-law roll across the tent, knock over the porridge pot, kick the last firewood stack, bump your grandmother's leg, she groans, "Don't break more bones." Amid clumsy wrestling, soft yells, and kids' stifled giggles, you realize you're enjoying this. For the first time in weeks, your heart races not from cold, your blood warms, your eyes widen, your muscles tense, fighting the entire winter. After 5 minutes, you both collapse, panting. Your mother shoves a rock-hard bread piece into each hand. Truce? Yeah, and no one mentions it again. But from that day, there's something to talk about. Kids play brother-in-law versus uncle. Your grandmother laughs once after days of gloom, and the tent, though still cold, damp, moldy, and dark, feels a bit warmer. So, each week, though no one says it, a small spat erupts over who ate the bigger fish piece, who hogged the fire spot, or your brother-in-law's 18th retelling of his unfunny joke. But now you understand, arguing is entertainment. It's how a community trapped in a wooden box amid white hell finds a human rhythm. No theater needed, no instruments, just a stubborn head, a mistimed comment, a punch light enough not to break teeth but hard enough to roll, and that's enough for a performance to make the tent forget the cold for one night. And so, amid snow, wind, hunger, mold, and darkness, you find a strange cure. A well-timed punch can briefly heal a mind rotting from stillness. And your brother-in-law, he still breathes loudly, still smiles, still tells unfunny jokes. But now, when you glare, he winks. Round 2, you smile, not because you hate him, but because winter's still long, and entertainment's worth more than firewood. But it's not just adults needing a light punch to stay sane. Kids, those strange creatures still able to laugh in a moldy tent in the 3rd sunless month, crave entertainment too. And if adults fight to stay sane, kids play with dried fish heads and dirty snow. It sounds grim, but in this context, it's rare happiness. You're not sure when it started. Maybe after the 10th consecutive breakfast of porridge and moldy fish, one kid flipped a dried fish head, eyes intact, and chucked it at another's face. No crying, no anger, just fun, and it began. Within a week, fish heads became soccer balls, throwing games, even stars in makeshift plays. Fishhead King wore an eggshell crown. Fishhead Enemy was buried in snow, then dug up for trial. Fishhead Grandma got dry grass whiskers and a torn rag scarf. The games might be filthy, might stink, but they made the tent echo with a sound the village nearly forgot. Real laughter. Besides fish heads, the second favorite toy is dirty snow. Not fairy tale white snow. Snow rolled through mud, streaked with hearth ash, smeared with sheep fat, sometimes flecked with dog fur. Kids roll it into balls, shape it into people, animals, using dried potatoes for eyes, fish bones for teeth. You once nearly stepped on a snow monster. The kids placed by the tent door, It looked like a deer buried alive, reborn as a cactus, but they proudly bragged, "It guards our sleep." You didn't have the heart to ruin it, though its smell made the tent's dog cough for 3 days. One day, you saw 2 kids fighting over a broken wooden spoon, not from hunger, because they were playing Magic Spoon, an artifact that turns fish heads into spirits and summons the sun. One hid it in their clothes, the other chased, tumbled into snow, then sprang up laughing like they'd found treasure. Your heart ached, watching, because you know they have nothing, yet they're building a world to keep living. And you realize, while adults break from the inside out, kids hold the last threads tying humanity to hope. They don't ask why winter's so long, don't demand sun, don't crave potatoes. They just want more dirty snow to sculpt. One night, as you step out to tend the fire, you catch the youngest girl cradling a fish head, withered to leather, humming softly. No words, just a simple tune. But in that tent, amid coughs, chattering teeth, and wind hissing through roof cracks, that hum is a quiet miracle. You sit, silent. No one taught her to sing. No one told her what to hold, but she found her own way to survive in her mind. The next morning, you see her use the fish head as a ball in a new game, throw the past into the snow. You ask why call it that. She grins, because the fish head's the past, and snow buries it all. You nod. It's the clearest definition of Viking psyche you've ever heard. The games continue. A girl glues chicken feathers to a fish head, calling it a flying fish. A boy convinces the group he dug up a Nordic dragon bone, really a blackened dead root. Everyone believes, because believing keeps you alive another day. And you start helping the kids. You carve a boat from rotten wood, stick a fish head on as a sailor. You teach them to retell myths with old gloves. A holy glove becomes a dragon, thumb as head, index finger as tail. When a kid raises their hand in the dark tent, shouting, "I'm the last ice dragon, here to eat sadness," the whole tent laughs. Laughter, though some cough after, though the glove stinks, but real laughter. And you understand in a Nordic winter, entertainment doesn't come from luxury, but from whatever's left in the survival trash heap. Even if it's just a dried fish head, even if it's just dirty snow, even if it's just a broken spoon. If you can play, if you can still imagine, kids will outlast adults, because they don't need reasons to believe, just someone to let them believe in anything, odd enough to make the dark less terrifying. And you, who once thought fish heads were trash and dirty snow, a nuisance, start seeing things differently. You sculpt snow, you stick fish bones on your hat, you tell stories with spoons, not because you're mad, but because you've learned to survive from kids who don't know they're in hell. And in that dark night, in the frozen, damp, moldy tent, you grasp something deeper than any myth you've heard. Survival doesn't start with strength, but with play, and the kids are the real mythology you should believe in. But there comes a time, no matter how you play with the kids, no matter if you shape snow into dragons or fish heads into gods, when your mind starts to crack because you're an adult. And adults, in a Viking winter, when firewood, fish, vitamins, light, even tears are gone, have one last way to keep living without going mad. Drinking, not wine from southern grapes, not barley ale in tin mugs, but homemade liquor brewed from anything fermentable in this rotting tent. The problem is, drinking without dying. The first in the village to die from bad liquor was Olvar, widowed carpenter from the next tent, who made chairs now burned for fuel. He brewed liquor from dried turnips, old yeast, and snowmelt off the roof. One evening, he drank 2 clay bowls, laughed heartily, then slept. The next morning, he didn't wake. No frothing, no screaming, no thrashing, just not breathing. They said he died peacefully, but everyone knew it was the liquor. One wrong ingredient, one wrong temperature, one wrong sip, at the wrong hour, wrong stomach, and you're shipped to Valhalla without a battle. So, an unspoken rule forms in your tent. Liquor's only for those who can drink without dying, and to know how, you start from scratch. First, pick ingredients. Natural yeast, not moldy, leftover honey, in an old clay jar, dried apples, if lucky, or oozing potatoes. Never use sheep fat, its stench is harsh, and the result is death's toxin. Then, fermentation, no glass jars, just wooden buckets, woven baskets, stone pails. Yeast must be kept alive with body heat, meaning someone, usually you, holds it like a dead cat while sleeping. 3 nights later, if the mix doesn't bloat, foam black, or smell like a rat's grave, it's tentatively drinkable liquor. Then, testing. Always test a sip in the morning. If it poisons you, there's a day to save you. Drink at night, you sleep forever, and never let kids touch it. Unless you want them running circles, screaming for 6 hours, like your brother-in-law's son once did. You sip slowly, hold it in your mouth. Wait, listen, if your throat burns, stomach quivers, forehead warms, congratulations. You've brewed a batch, drinkable without death. But if your eyes blur, ears ring, chest tightens like a snake's grip, don't swallow, spit it out, run laps around the tent, and prepare to dig a pit. Good liquor makes people talk less of death. It flushes cheeks, makes laughter louder, turns old stories into epics. You once heard your father tell how he met your mother, a story you know by heart, but with liquor, he told it with a warm voice, misty eyes, and everyone listened like it was a new love saga. Liquor helps people eat more, even moldy fish, eases old folks' bone aches, makes the young miss sunlight less, turns tent arguments into amusing banter, sometimes ending in hugs instead of punches. But you learn liquor helps only if you know its limit. One night, your brother-in-law, the one you fought for fun, drank past 2 bowls, started laughing loudly, then crying, then screaming, "The sun is dead," then ran into the snow, shirtless, yelling at the wind. You and your father dragged him back, his hands purple, lips pale. He woke the next morning, remembering nothing, but something in his eyes broke forever, and you swear to yourself, you won't go that far. Liquor's medicine, but it's poisoned medicine. It's fire in winter, and ice, if overused. So you become the liquor keeper. You distill, test each drop, dilute with snowmelt, smell it, watch reactions. You note who handles what, who doesn't, and you ration 1 small cup per person, twice a week, only when the tense mood is too moldy to endure. You create a ritual, sit in a circle, raise cups, clink lightly, and say, "Drink so tomorrow's no worse than today." It makes everyone laugh, because they know it'll be worse. But if you're drunk just enough, it feels like yesterday, and that's enough. And you understand, in a Viking winter, avoiding poison isn't about the liquor's recipe, but using it to keep hearts beating, not to forget you're alive. You drink, but stay alert. And if you're wise enough, you drink, not to escape reality, but to find the courage to face it again. One more day, a long, cold, moldy, sunless day, but with liquor, fire, hoarse laughter, and you still trying, not dead, not drunk enough to forget your name. And that is enough. But only within the limits of what you have left to burn, because no matter how carefully you ration liquor, share fire, or divide faith, a cold truth arrives, unannounced. The firewood's gone. Again. And this time no altar, no window frame, no plank left to regret. The last things burned last week, your grandmother's chair legs, the back door handle, even the board carved with your ancestors' names, even the ash you've stuffed back into the hearth to hold heat. So what's left? The answer comes from your father, in a hoarse, chillingly calm voice. Gudrun's house, empty since last winter. Half the roof caved in from snow, but the frame's there. Old pine, it'll burn. No one reacts immediately. Everyone looks at each other. In your mind, the wind howls, whistling through the tent's last crack, and in that crack, you hear clearly, we're about to burn the neighbor's house to live. Not out of hatred, not greed, but because there's no choice left. No one volunteers. Though Gudrun's house is empty, though she died last winter, clutching her cat in the cellar, the house still holds the air of a once-lived place, a not-yet cold corpse of a life. Stepping in, breaking off planks, prying beams, snapping rafters, feels like grave robbing someone with a will. So the tent decides draw lots. You look at the leather strips, torn from a glove, one shorter than the rest. Whoever draws it goes. Every hand trembles the same. Every throat is dry. You close your eyes, reach in. When you pull out the short strip, your heart doesn't race. It just stops, like a fire snuffed by sudden wind. No one speaks. Your father pats your shoulder lightly. Your grandmother nods, as if she foresaw this. Your mother hands you the blunt axe, a weapon too dull for a healthy sheep, but enough to pry a doorframe with time and desperation. You set out in the sunless morning. Wind cuts through your neck, blowing back into your heart. The path to Gudrun's house is thick with black snow. No footprints left. The house looms like a ghost, tilted, sunken, grinding its teeth in the wind. But you don't hesitate. You climb the collapsed porch, push the door, hard as a boulder. Inside, it's pitch black, colder than outside. Part of the roof's fallen, snow blanketing tables and chairs. There's a stale smell like burnt hair, like sorrow bottled for years. You start with the dining table. Chopped chair legs. Each swing stabs your heart. Each crack tears a story. You imagine Gudrun sitting here, drinking turnip water, cursing her husband, stroking her daughter's hair. Now the table's firewood, the chair's ash, and you're a shivering god of destruction. You work in silence, just the axe and your breath. Sometimes, wind slams the door open, creaking like a complaint from the dead. But you don't retreat. You stack wood on a drag hide, tie it, and haul it back. Back at the tent, you say nothing, face pale, hands shaking, eyes blank. But in the sack is the week's greatest treasure, firewood, real firewood, pine that burns fragrant, long with orange flames you haven't seen in ages. The family sits around, silent. No one praises, no one asks. They just warm their hands and look at you like you've returned from another world, and you have. Then, night comes. You draw lots again. No one forces it. But Gudrun's wood lasts only 2 days. There'll be other houses. Eric's family, swept away by a landslide. The young couple, who left the village chasing the sun. Your cousin's husband, who choked on ash last year. Those houses, like firewood stacks waiting in the snow. You don't draw the short strip again. But this time, the one who does, doesn't cry. They look at you. You nod. They go. You sit by the hearth, watching flames from a dead neighbor's dining table. And you understand in peacetime, burning a neighbor's house is a crime. In a Viking winter, it's the last inheritance. A cycle of fire, an unwilling legacy. You silently vow, when spring comes, you'll build a table, a chair, a porch, not for anyone to use. Just to remember, some fires aren't born of destruction, but from accepting you can't survive keeping everything as it was. From ash, you boil water. From wood, others left, you warm those who remain. And winter continues. But now you have firewood, fire and guilt, but also life. And if you had to choose again, you'd still draw the short strip, because between life and death, sometimes it's just about who's brave enough to swing the axe first. But not everyone gets the chance to swing an axe. Some just go to sleep and never wake up. No screams, no last words, no frothing, no thrashing, no blood. Just a final breath dissolving into the darkness. Light as a breeze brushing the tent wall, unheard, unnoticed. Until morning, when the household stirs and realizes one person under those blankets has been silent too long. The first in your tent to go this way was your grandmother. No surprise, no drama. Just one morning, as you stretched and reached for a cup of water, you saw her still lying there, face turned toward you, eyes half closed as usual. You touched her shoulder. Cold, you called. No response. Your mother whispered, "Let her be." Your father nodded, then bowed his head. No one cried. No one shouted. A strange stillness settled over, as if winter itself had leaned down and taken one away. You sat there beside her body, for an hour without realizing, just staring at the fire, listening to the faint groans of the living, and thinking, maybe she went peacefully. Maybe, amid all the pain, that was the gentlest way. After that, everything happened quickly, and eerily quietly. No funeral, no incense, no coffin, no farewells, just wrapping her in the blanket she used all winter, tying it tight, and when the snow eased at noon, you and your father dug a pit behind the tent. The ground was hard as stone. The shovel struck it like a hammer on bone. As you lowered her, your mother slipped an old necklace from her coat, your grandmother's wedding gift, and placed it silently on her chest, then turned away. You didn't know if you should pray. You only whispered, "She'll be warmer here," because deep under the snow, at least, there's no wind. That night, the tent was quieter than usual. No one ate much. No one told stories. The dog lay by the fire, whimpering softly. Your brother hid under his blanket, silent for 3 days. Your father stoked the fire earlier, brighter. You knew he was afraid, not of her death, but of who might be next. In the days that followed, you started watching closely. Who's breathing weakly? Who's stopped coughing? A bad sign. Who's lying too still? And you notice something strange. Death in winter doesn't stalk with a knife, a beast, or hunger. It comes like a deep sleep, gentle, but final. You once thought death would announce itself, with pain. But no, in this winter, it's a silent vanishing, like a candle snuffed out unnoticed, because the light was already dim. It's when someone stops moving, but you don't notice because everyone's trying to stay still to save energy. It's when a hand slips from a blanket, but no one rushes to tuck it back, thinking they're just dreaming, and because death comes so softly, it's terrifying. It makes you panic each morning. Am I still breathing? Am I sure the person beside me is alive? You start counting. 1, 2, 3, 4 breaths. Pause, then a fifth. You sigh in relief, but then wonder, who'll miss the sixth? Winter isn't over, the cold hasn't relented, and everyone knows more will go. But no one says it, because speaking it makes it realer. Because death and sleep is the one thing everyone quietly prepares for, though no one admits it. You start doing small things, adjusting your mother's pillow as she sleeps, tucking an extra blanket over your brother, though he pushes it off, adding wood to the fire at midnight, just to ensure the tent doesn't drop 1 degree colder. Not because you're hopeful, but because if you don't, who'll be next? Then one night, in a dream, you see your grandmother by the fire. She turns, smiles, says, "There's sunlight over there." You don't ask where there is. You only ask, "Are you cold?" She laughs. "Cold, yes, but not in pain." You wake, eyes wet, but heart light. For the first time in days, your chest doesn't ache like the outdoors, and you realize, maybe death isn't the enemy this winter. It's the real enemy, is growing numb to death. When you stop feeling anything when someone goes, when a body is just one less mouth to feed, and you swear, whoever dies next, you'll remember their name. You'll tuck their blanket one last time. You'll burn an extra log, not for them, but because you need to stay human. Winter hasn't passed, but tonight you lie down, pull the blanket to your neck, turn so no hand is exposed, and before sleeping, you whisper, "Let no one die tonight," like a charm, like a small wish. Then you close your eyes, clutching your breath, like a sacred thing, and hope, truly hope. When you wake, there'll still be enough people to tend the fire. But some nights, you don't dare close your eyes, not from fear of death, but from a greater fear, the wind and absolute silence. Contradictory, not at all. In a Viking winter, they're a hellish pair, one screaming outside, the other lurking within. And if you've survived months of snow, you know when both arrive together, that's when you should worry most. The wind, in the north, isn't a gentle breeze through a door crack. It's a living thing. It howls like a lost soul, hisses through the tent like a knife on stone. It touches your neck with sharp claws, stabs your ears like tiny blades dipped in ice. Some nights, it screams for 3 hours straight, as if someone outside is tearing at the tent's hides, crying, laughing, cursing. You pull the blanket tight, cover your ears, press your head to your chest, but the wind slips through every gap. It's a silent invader, needing no door, no feet, but knowing exactly how your heart beats. You can handle cold. You've slept in snow. You've swung an axe to dismantle a dead neighbor's door, but you can't bear the wind at 2 a.m. Where was it? When everyone sleeps silently, and you lie there, listening to it wail alone. That feeling convinces you, you're being called by name, in some ancient tongue your ears don't grasp, but your spine chills bone by bone. You once whispered to your father, "Do you hear something?" Without opening his eyes, he said, "Don't answer," then fell silent, as if by responding to what's hissing out there, it would step inside, and you'd never step out again. But the wind isn't the worst part. The worst is what follows, absolute silence. No more wind, no breaths, no groans, no crackling fire. Everything stops. You open your eyes, see everyone lying there, but no one moves, no one turns, no one shifts. The tent is pitch black, still enough to hear your heartbeat, and nothing else. You cough softly, no response. You shift, trying to make a sound, but you're scared of your own noise in that silence. Because what if, by making a sound, something else answers? You've read myths about ice spirits, white shadows that come when people sleep without a fire. They don't kill, they sit by the living, waiting for their breath to stop. then quietly pull them along. No blood, no pain, just a shift from living to forever silent. And you've thought of it too many times. So when you wake in a night without wind, without sound, without light, you don't feel relieved. You feel terror, so deep your mind trembles. You grope for your blanket, for warmth, for the dog's breath. Nothing. As if the world's switch was flipped off without warning. A void, like the universe's empty gut. That's when you start making sounds. Small ones, tapping a finger on wood, scratching your pant leg, humming a nonsense myth. Thor strikes his hammer thrice. The wolf howls once. The sun trembles. The sounds don't bring joy, but they keep you on this side of reality. After that night, you keep something noisy within reach when you sleep. A dry stick, a bone, a pouch of pebbles, just to make sound when needed. To confirm, I'm not dead yet. You tell your brother, if you wake at midnight, cough softly, so I know you're alive. He nods. From then on, each night, at random hours, he coughs faintly. Not sick, just a Morse code of life. And you respond by rustling your blanket. A slight shuffle, but enough. You learn small sounds are humanity's last stand against despair. You don't need to shout, just breathe steadily, tap lightly, shift, wiggle a toe, enough to hold the fragile line between still here and gone. And you learn if the wind screams, but your tent is full of breaths, shifts, crackling wood, it can't touch you. It's just the world's noise raging, because it can't defeat the people inside, hands under blankets, teeth-biting lips, hearts still beating. But if the wind stops, and your tent has no sound at all, get up, tend the fire, tap the wall 3 times, and whisper, as you have since your grandmother died, no one dies tonight, no one dies tonight, no one dies tonight. Because you know, if no one speaks, the next sound you hear might not come from the living. And that's what you fear, more than wind, more than cold, more than death. It's a silent night where you're the last to hear anything. And to avoid that utter silence, people do something they'd long abandoned: pray. Not with dreamy eyes or clasped hands, like in old books, but with mutters through teeth stiff from cold, small repeated gestures, like charms against the dark, and offerings that to an outsider would seem insane. But you're not mad, you're just trying to live. And to live, you offer Thor frozen fingernails. It started with your brother's odd idea. One night, as wind shook the tent, the fire flickered near extinction, and everyone lay silent like corpses. He sat up, saying, "We haven't offered Thor anything." The tent stared like his brain had cracked, but he was serious. He rummaged in his blanket, pulled out a broken fingernail, held it high. "I offer this, Thor. Keep the wind out." You didn't laugh, because minutes later, the wind eased, not stopped, but eased, and in the humming silence after, you heard someone whisper, "Give me another nail." From that day, a new ritual was born. No one called it a ceremony, but whenever something bad happened, wind tearing, porridge burning, a baby coughing endlessly, an old woman dreaming of zombies, someone would flick a fingernail, scrape a toenail, or snap off a dry callus, if any, and toss it into the fire. Each time you trim nails, once simple hygiene, it becomes sacred. You watch the nail fall into the hearth, hear it crackle, and think, "Thor, take this, spare us today." Then people personalize their offerings. Your mother offered grey hairs, your father, old beads, your brother-in-law shaved a thin line on his arm, letting drops of blood fall on the snow before tossing them in the fire. He said, "Thor likes red." No one argued. As a child, you mocked faith, but now, in an endless winter, you understand, prayer isn't to change the world, but to keep your mind from melting into meaninglessness. And fingernails, small, grim, sometimes half broken, frozen like scrap iron, become its symbol. A piece of you, shed, offered, turned into a plea to gods who may not exist. One night, your brother spiked a fever. Eyes glassy, body burning, breathing fast. The tent panicked. You ran to the hearth, digging for anything unoffered. Nothing left. You looked at your hands. Nails gone from last week. Then you remembered. Feet. You tore off your sock, scraped frozen toenails with a blunt knife, trembling as you tossed them in. They burned, smelling of scorched skin and mud. You sat watching the fire turn green, and you thought, "Please, please, please." The next morning your brother sweated, fever broke. You don't know if it was the fire, his strength, or luck, but you didn't ask. You just scraped more nails, tossed them in, and nodded. Thank you. From then you kept a small pouch. At first, for a game of who offers most, but it became a true offering pouch. When storms raged, when someone coughed endlessly, when someone dreamed of white shadows by their bed, you opened the pouch, picked a nail, and tossed it in, like a part-time priest of a frost-dead religion. You once thought Vikings offered horses, blood, weapons. You offer the lowliest thing, fingernails. But now, it makes sense. In this brutal winter, who has spare horses, who has blood to spill? Only what falls off without killing you is a true offering. You scrawl on the tent wall, Thor needs no grand sacrifice, just what the living dare share. Someone draws a hammer beside it, and from that day, when the wind screams, you touch the nail pouch on you. Like a talisman, like a ticket keeping you from being swept away in a night. No one hears your scream. You're not sure Thor's real, but you're sure your nails still grow. Though you're malnourished, sleepless, nearly frozen, they grow. And you understand as long as they do, you have a chance. So you trim, you gather, you offer. And when the fire burns, even for an hour, just enough to keep lips from purpling, you feel alive, still offering something, still believing in something. Even if it's just a thunder god who never appears, but is always imagined at the right moment. And that, paradoxically, is the only thing letting you endure another day in this icy hell. But just as you grow used to hell, start believing you'll survive. Start counting days instead of losses. Just when you think I'm making it, death creeps in the most unexpected way. A slip, a patch of ice, and a broken neck. Simple, clean, unannounced, no miracles. That morning, the sky seemed brighter. Not sunny, of course, but clouds thinned. Snow didn't fall thickly. Wind softened. In the tent, people woke earlier. You sat by the hearth, warming hands, watching smoke rise straight. For the first time in weeks, you felt something like hope, not grand, just the sense, if I survive today, tomorrow's closer to spring. You decided to fetch water. You stepped out, wearing cracked goat-hide boots, a wooden bucket on your shoulder. The wind wasn't harsh. You walked steadier. As you went, you thought, maybe I'll tell this to my grandkids. Maybe one day, then crack. A sharp sound echoed in the silent, church-like air. You didn't react in time, didn't raise a hand, didn't shout. Your foot slipped on invisible ice, a trap under snow, like Loki's prank. Your body fell like a sack of flour off a cart. Your head hit a small rock jutting from the ground. Your neck twisted unnaturally. And then, nothing. You didn't die instantly. For a moment, you felt wind brush your ears. A sharp pain shot down your spine. But no movement, no words. You just lay there, staring at the grey sky, eyes wide, knowing you're about to stop being alive. Time crawled, like blood dripping from your nose. You thought of your mother, your brother, the nail pouch you hadn't used. You wished you'd been careful, not rushed. Noticed the ice, but no one taught you. Death in winter doesn't always come from hunger, illness, despair, but from the moment you let your guard down, believing you're fine. It was half an hour before your father ran out. He shouted your name, slipped, fell, crawled to you. When he turned you over, your neck tilted at an angle, your eyes still open. He knew, everyone knew. The tent stood silent as he carried you back, like hauling a broken tree. Your brother screamed. Your mother didn't cry. She just looked at you like she'd lost her own arm. They didn't burn you, didn't bury you right away. They laid you by the hearth, covered you with hides, sewed your collar straight, and sat, watching you. No one mentioned how you just said you'd live to spring. No one recalled your laughter over Thor's stories. They just sat silently, for the first time in days, not from fear of death, but from seeing what death really looked like. Death, by a fall, by overconfidence, by believing the worst was over. But in Viking lands, there's no worst until you're lying still. Days later, you were buried beside your grandmother. No marker stone, just a half-burned log stuck in the snow, carved with thought I'd survive. Then someone, maybe your father, maybe your brother, took the nail pouch from your body, tossed one last piece into the fire, and said, "This time, take no more." The fire burned, then died. Everyone kept living. And from that day, no one in the tent dared say, "It'll be fine," because they knew, when you start believing you've escaped, winter reminds you, not yet, not yet. There's still a fall, a patch of ice, a moment's lapse, a neck. You became a lesson, a warning tale. And in that endless winter, you, though no longer breathing, kept everyone alert, through memory, through fear, and through how you went in, the moment you thought you'd won. And so, you live on, in the fear. Vikings never dare name misplaced faith in hope. But there's another fear, deeper, quieter, not from ice or accidents, but from the conscious choice of those who've lived too long in this winter. When people stop believing in fire, in liquor, stop wanting blankets, lack strength to pee without help, they know it's time. They don't say it, they don't write a will, they just quietly stand one morning and walk into the forest, taking nothing, never returning. The first in your tent to do this was your mother's father, your grandfather. He was old before winter began, but these months made him a tattered shadow, silent, unsmiling, sleepless. He sat by the fire, eyes on the ashes, as if talking to his wife, dead last winter. Lately, he ate nothing. When porridge came, he gave it to the kids, saying, "I've eaten." No one could force him. No one could change the look of a man who'd seen his end from afar. Then one morning, while everyone slept, he donned his old cloak, draped a sheep hide, tied his shoes silently. No one saw, no one heard. The tent door opened once, then closed. Snow hid clear footprints. The dog didn't bark, and when the household woke, his spot was empty. Not heavy, not surprising, just a long silence. Then your mother said one thing. He chose. Everyone understood. In Viking lands, the old don't die in bed. They die in the forest, not abandoned, but by choice. No knife, no axe, no food. They know nothing survives hours in snow, without blankets or fire. That's the point. They don't want to survive, not because they hate anyone, but because they love. An old person in the tent is another mouth to feed, body to warm, share of wood to give. And in a world where death stalks children, pregnant women, the sick, people like your grandfather see themselves as burdens. Their last act of love is to vanish. Your mother cried after 3 days, not for his death, but because she didn't say goodbye. Your brother muttered nightly, "Has he met Grandma yet?" You said nothing, but in your mind, you saw the white-bearded old man, under a birch, arms around knees, eyes closed, snow piling over, a peaceful statue. A beautiful end in an ugly world. After that, everyone prepared mentally, unspoken, but understood. Whoever weakens too much, can't walk to the latrine, sleeps too long. They're next. There were furtive glances, whispered words. Hogs held longer, because everyone knew it might be the last. Then came Tora, your mother's cousin. One morning, she folded your mother's handkerchief, placed it under her pillow, then walked out, carrying nothing but a dry spruce branch. No one stopped her. No one cried. Only the youngest child asked, "Where's she going?" And your mother just bowed her head, stroking their hair. "She's looking for light." From then, each month someone left, quietly. No farewell rites, just an empty spot, a left-behind item, an untouched meal. And strangely, those departures, voluntary, conscious, uncoerced, made the rest live longer. Because when someone grew weary, they remembered, "I'm still in the tent, by the fire, with kin." The cost of living is knowing death clearly. And each time you warm your hands, you know, someone chose not to, so you could have that wood. You once thought Vikings were brutal, but you realized the brutality here is an extreme form of love. Those strong enough to live must live for those who left. And you, in howling wind nights, asked yourself, would I do it when the time comes? You don't know, but you keep a rope for your shoes, a hide cloak, a message for your brother. If one morning I'm not in the tent, add wood to the fire. Don't look for me. I chose, because in Viking lands, when survival has worn you to the bone, people don't die from illness or hunger. They die because they know it's time to stop. And that death, though cold, is the most honorable you've ever known. They don't kill themselves. They step off the board, leaving more water, wood, space for the rest. And so, in death, they live again, in every breath of those they leave behind. But life, however fragile and mad, still creeps through winter like stubborn weeds sprouting in snow, and it appears not through prayers or rituals, but through the faint groans of a woman in labor in the tent at midnight. You jolt awake, not from wind, not from cold, but from the rapid broken breaths of your sister-in-law, pregnant with her second child, hand on her belly, lips pale, whispering, "It's coming." You've never seen anyone in the tent give birth in winter. Other children were born in fall, spring, when there were vegetables, light, dry grass to white blood. But now it's the iciest month, firewood's gone, boiled water's a cup a day, and the cleanest blanket was used to wrap your grandfather's body. No one says don't give birth now. What's the point? The child doesn't choose the season, it just comes, and when it knocks, you can only open the door, knowing a chasm might lie beyond. The tent shifts to high survival mode. Your mother stokes the fire, burning all remaining wood. Your brother runs to catch snow, heating it for hand-washing water. You hold the knife heated on stone. The father sits outside too scared to enter, muttering charms to Thor or Freya, anyone, as long as they help. Your sister-in-law doesn't scream, no strength to. She only moans, hands clutching her husband's shirt, eyes wide, staring at the tent ceiling, as if facing death in her child's form. Each contraction shakes her body, sweat pouring but freezing on her temples. You've never seen so much blood since winter began, not bright red, but dark brown, clotting on the old hide beneath her. The tent feels suffocated, no one breathes hard, no one speaks, just the howling wind outside, and your heartbeat pounding in your ears. The child is born after 7 hours, no cry, just a tiny pale thing, lifted by the trembling hands of a mother, nearly drained of strength. A minute later, it whimpers, not quite a cry, but a sound, and that's enough. The tent releases its first breath in hours. You cut the cord with the heated knife, wrap the child in the father's old musty shirt, place it against the mother's chest. But the danger's not over. You know, winter newborns don't die at birth. They die hours later, when their body isn't warm enough, hasn't nursed enough, hasn't breathed deeply enough, when they sleep, and no one's sure they're still breathing. So you take turns watching it, every hour. Check lips, check chest, hold a finger under its nose, and each time you hear a faint breath like a baby mouse, the tent feels reborn, but the mother weakens fast, face ashen, hands too frail to hold her child. You help her each time the baby nurses, and you see the truth. Without a miracle, one of them won't survive the week. You start giving her your food share, diluted liquor mixed with the last honey, snow water boiled twice. You wrap an extra hide around mother and child, tying them close with rope. No one asks what's the baby's name. No one dares think it'll live long enough to need one. But then, a week passes, the child opens its eyes, and your sister-in-law, though still bedbound, smiles. The tent falls silent. No one dares celebrate, but from that day, people add water to the porridge, saving a spoonful for the child. They give up the spot by the fire for mother and baby. They pile old clothes as blankets. And on the 10th night, your father whispers, its name is Raven, because it clings to life. You understand, in this world, a soul daring to open its eyes in winter is the greatest act of defiance. It's a sneer at death, a challenge to ice, darkness, and death itself. And when you hear the baby's coo in the night, you're not annoyed, you're grateful. It's the sound of someone new, someone who doesn't yet know this world's cruelty, yet dares cry for milk in a blizzard. A living sound, raw, fragile, but real. And you tell yourself, if it survived, I must live another day, not for me, but to tell it one day you were born in hell, and the whole tent did everything for you to cry that first cry. But when the crying stops, when the baby sleeps in its exhausted mother's arms, when the fire burns but its light can't melt the snow outside, that's when you retreat, sit alone in the darkest corner, look at your cracked hands, and for the first time, truly ask, why did my ancestors choose to live here? You don't say it aloud, you don't dare, but the question loops in your head like a nail driven into your brain. Why? Why not migrate south? Why not follow the reindeer? Why not sail to lands with sunlight, green forests, big fish, Why camp on land hard as stone, cold as dead bones, with storms crashing like divine blows, and food dug from old dung? You look around the tent, pale faces, gaunt hands trembling under hides, the hearth whining as if dying, the newborn with dark circles under its eyes, and you whisper to yourself, almost shouting, "What are we doing here?" Yes, forget glory, forget warriors of the north, or Odin's heirs, forget old poems as excuses. The truth is, we're in one of the harshest places humans ever dared pitch a tent, and you, shivering from cold, aching from hunger, coughing from hearth smoke, fearing every gust, you can't find a sane reason to still be here. Except, you were born here. You imagine your ancestors, maybe a burly man, long-haired, axe in hand, staring at the sea, saying, "Sure, this place kills, but I'll raise kids here." Maybe a woman with a kitchen knife saying, "No wood, no salt, but I'll birth 12 kids in this snow tent." And they staked the ground, dug earth, hunted deer, lived, and left you. You envy southerners. You've heard of lands with meadows, long summers, wine, and hot meals daily. Their ancestors chose sunlight. Yours chose darkness. You clench your teeth, not from anger, but to keep from screaming. Part of you wants to stand, pack, drag the tent south, but you know you can't. Your father won't leave. Your mother's too weak. Your sister-in-law just gave birth. Your brother's too young. And you were taught, we're Vikings. We don't run, but you start to understand something else. Maybe your ancestors didn't choose this place because it was good, but because there was nowhere else. Maybe they were driven from richer lands, fled wars, famine, floods, and when they reached this harsh but safe place, they said, "Here at least humans won't kill us, only nature will," and they accepted it. Bore children, died, but left one thing, will, that cursed thing no one wants, but the only thing you have in a place where everything tries to kill you. You look at the tent again. Someone coughs, someone sleeps, the baby sucks its thumb, and you think, maybe this is why. Not glory, not honor, just we can live here, even one more day, and that's victory. You smile, painful, tired, but a smile. In resenting your ancestors, you see the truth. They didn't choose this place because they were strong. They chose it to prove they wouldn't break. And you, though you hate to admit it, are still proving it. You return to the group, add wood to the fire, spoon water to the new mother, give your brother a lump of frozen porridge, and when the wind howls again, you mutter, "Yeah, ancestors were fools, but I'm not. I'm just stuck being born from them." And even that, in this deadly winter, is enough to make you pick up the axe and chop another log. You thought that was the peak, that if you survived this winter, didn't die from cold, hunger, illness, despair, or a slip, things would slowly improve. But that's the prettiest lie winter whispers as it prepares to leave. Because when snow melts, when the first sunlight peeks through the tent's hide, when the village sighs in relief, thinking they've survived, mud arrives, and it kills in a whole new, indifferent way. You remember the first day mud rose. No warning. That morning as you pushed open the tent door and stepped down, you didn't hear the familiar crunch of frozen snow. Instead, a wet squelch. You looked down, and for the first time in 3 months, saw grey-brown, not wood, but earth, rotting, mud, sticky, slippery, cold, so cold, you didn't think much of it. Everyone was joyful. The snow's melting was the day's refrain. Some laughed, some danced, some dumped dirty water and gathered the last snow for ice. But you, as your second step sank into a waterlogged pit, forcing you to pull your foot free with both hands, you knew the real misery was just beginning. Mud isn't like snow. It's not beautiful, doesn't glint, isn't soft. It's a mix of old urine, fish blood, burnt grease, clay, hearth ash, and thawed rat corpses. It clings to boots, pants, legs, hands, minds. It slows you. Each step is a wrestle, and you soon realize it kills strength faster than cold. The old woman in your tent was the first to fall. She stepped out to pee, slipped, head hitting a tent pole. No snow to cushion, just mud, and a rock exposed after months buried. She died on the spot, not from ice, but from slipping in mud. A child next, chasing the dog, stepped into a black puddle, couldn't rise, Adults heard the scream too late. Pulled up, it was purple, cold, chest soft as soggy bread. Its mother clutched the body, rolling in mud, wailing. No one dared approach. Mud spread like plague. Every dent became a death trap. Every spot where ash or fish blood was dumped foamed yellow. And the smell, God, the smell was every rotten thing since January, now free to surface. Going hunting. Good luck. You'll spend half an hour for 10 steps. You'll slip, soaking your hides, losing your bow in a bog. You'll return with pants wet to the thighs, butt caked in dirt, and nothing in your sack but a moldy rabbit foot. Want to burn wood? It's damp. All of it. Wet wind stops flames from catching. You fan until your arm aches, getting only smoke. Eyes sting. The fire's not hot enough for porridge, just enough to smoke the tent. Want to sleep? Straw beds are now mud puddles. Blankets soak, heavy. People sleep half stuck to earth. Mud's cold creeps from soles to spine. Some cough again. Some get diarrhea. Some itch from tiny bugs rising from thawed soil. And then you, who survived wind, hunger, silent death, birth's blood, now cry silently, after face planting, into a stinking puddle, swallowing something you suspect is last month's cat dung. You want to scream. We deserve a break. But no one rests. Mud doesn't let you stand still. Stand, and your feet sink. Sit, and your back's wet. Lie down, and you fever. Breathe through your mouth, and the stench twists your stomach. And you think, again, why did my ancestors choose this place? But this time, you don't curse them. You understand, they didn't choose mud. They just didn't die from it. Now it's your turn. Mud doesn't kill like snow. It's not sharp, not sudden. It just pulls you down bit by bit. And you choose struggle up, or quietly sink. So you learn to live with it.
Yeah.
You tie boots with triple knotted rope, dig trenches around the tent to drain mud, scatter ash on paths, bind dry branches for mats, hang clothes on racks to dry, wear double hides on your butt. You do everything, however humiliating, to keep mud from winning. And one day, you step out, still muddy to the knees, still stinking, still aching, but you don't fall. You stand firm. You pull your brother from a bog. You retrieve yesterday's dropped knife. You see the sun, not clear, but there. And you think, if surviving snow was victory, surviving mud is a second miracle. A filthy, foul-smelling miracle, but a miracle. You return to the tent, see the newborn sleeping, the mother smiling again, your father kindling with half-burnt wood, and you whisper, not dead from mud, not dead from snow, not dead from hope. And you live another day, one more, in mud, but alive. Then one day, stepping from the tent, feet still caked, nose still rank, body still sore, you look up and see golden orange light, piercing the clouds, hitting the roof, your hands, and you know spring has come. No one announces it, no one confirms. You just stand, close your eyes, and feel, it's different. Wind no longer cuts, like a knife. Earth warms, ice melts into trickling streams by your ears. Birds somehow return. You hear their song, and for the first time in months, sound doesn't warn of death, but reminds you, you're still alive. Spring arrives, but not in a rush. Not joyful, not like old poems or your imagination. It comes like a kin, barely escaping death. Gaunt, silent, hesitant to hug too long. But it comes, and your tent, once a rank, dark shelter, opens its door to the breeze. You clean the hide window, let light seep through cracks. You no longer fear something sneaking in. Now you crave sunlight. People in the tent rise. Your mother limps outside, with a cane. Your brother laughs again. The new mother carries her baby to bask. And your father, for the first time in months, tells a joke no one gets, but everyone laughs at. You look at them, the survivors, and you know you made it, but no one's whole. Your grandmother's gone. Your grandfather walked into the forest. Tora left only a handkerchief. The neighbor's child drowned in mud. Someone lost a foot to rot. Someone's eyes dimmed from vitamin lack. Someone's hair falls in clumps from endless stress. Someone stopped talking. Even you. You're not last month's you. Last season's you. Your hands bear unhealing scars. Your gait limps slightly from a fall. Your mind, quieter, darker, harder. You realize, surviving is a lie. You don't escape winter. It grinds, squeezes, claws, sharpens you, and you're still here after it all. That's not victory, it's consequence. You once saw spring as a reward. Now it's a time to count losses. And you do count the dead, the silent, the usable items left, the times you cried without sound, the things you gave up to reach today. One day, while hanging hides on poles, your brother asks, will next winter be like that again? You look at him, don't answer, because you don't know, but in your heart you say, if it is, we might not make it twice. You understand this winter's cost was everyone's spirit. No one's carefree anymore. No one says it'll be fine. No one promises. No one fully trusts anything. Even in spring, people eye clouds, wind, and shiver at sudden chills. You realize Viking winter doesn't just live on the calendar. It lives in your head, stays, takes space. Though the sun shines, you're wary. Though hands warm, you touch your axe to ensure it's there. Though someone laughs, you wait for a cough. And though the baby cries, you fear it'll stop, but you learn to live with the wounds. You start fixing the tent, not to forget, but to prepare. You weave baskets, plant greens, teach your brother archery, show the newborn drumbeats on hide. You write what happened with charcoal on wood, and you swear if you grow old, you'll tell your grandchildren everything. No sugarcoating, no hiding. You'll tell of breathless nights, nails tossed in fires, flames fed by dead neighbors' planks, mud killing silently, and cold mixed with wind, and the scariest silence. Because if winter marked you, you must mark it back with memory. You look at the sky, exhale, and for the first time, see no breath cloud, and you know your body's returning. But your soul will never be the same. You survived, but not whole, and that, strangely, is proof you truly existed. But then quietly and chillingly, you realize winter doesn't fully leave. It retreats, yes, leaving green grass and the musty smell of living earth, but it stays in you, not as skin-deep cold, but something rooted in your chest, making you shudder on a sunny noon, jolting you awake when the fire crackles too softly, making you pull your hand from warm water, fearing it's too comforting. Well, winter's haunt doesn't grip you with ferocity, but with repetition. Tiny, harmless-seeming memories flare up when least expected. A child rolling snow, you see them fall, heart pounding, as if someone hit a rock again. A hide aired out, its damp smell recalls your grandmother's burial shroud. A dead chicken reminds you of the child lost in mud. Those images don't leave. They lie there, like unquenched embers in an old hearth, flaring with one breath. You sleep less, not from specific fear, but because you're used to staying alert. All winter, you watched breaths beside you, heard wind like a thief at the door, counted fire's crackles, noted your mother's coughs, your brother's shifts, your father's sighs. Now, when all's well, silence unsettles you. Each night breeze makes you bolt upright. When someone sleeps too long, you lean close to check their chest rises. You don't call it fear, you call it caution. But you know, it's obsession. Winter won't let go. You heard a village storyteller say, winter has a soul, it doesn't kill with fangs. It breathes in your ear and stays. You scoffed then. Now you understand. Winter lives in your head, and you're not sure it'll ever leave. Once you dreamed you returned to the old tent, but you were old, lacing shoes, the tent silent. They looked at you the way you looked at your grandfather. You stepped out, snow thick again, and you knew you were walking into the forest. You woke heart racing, soaked in sweat, though it was spring outside. You look in a water mirror and ask, am I still me? The one who laughed loudly, told jokes at meals, dared snow barefoot, said cold's nothing compared to waiting. Now what? You fear overcast skies, hate closed doors, panic if alone in the tent, startle at a scar on your hand, forgetting its cause, and you understand, bitterly but truly, winter's real cold isn't on your skin, it's in memory, and you live with it. Every day, they say time heals, to maybe, but some wounds don't need healing, they need living with, decently. You don't erase winter from yourself, you wrap it up, like a body in the last hide. You carry it, like a cold shadow in your heart's depths, to remind you, you endured what not everyone could. A child asks, is snow scary? You pause, then say, no, but silence in snow is The child doesn't get it. You don't need them to now. One day, they will. And you, when you see beautiful sunlight, linger longer, not from laziness, but to check if the light's real. You look at it like someone betrayed gazes at an old love, wanting to trust, fearing it'll leave without a word. You kindle fire with trembling hands. Still carry a small hide pouch with a frozen nail from last winter, just in case it's needed. You never step out without checking the ground. Never drink cold water without touching kin's foreheads. You laugh more, but softer. You survived, but you're not carefree. You aged in that winter, though your years are young, and that's the real haunt. Not that winter doesn't end, but that you're no longer who you were before it began. And you'll always be the one who stepped from darkness, with darkness trailing behind. Light, but real. You're a Viking. You survived. And winter's haunt is the reward you can't return. But then, near summer's end, when the ground's no longer mud, when snow clings only to high rocks, when children play outside without triple hides, you stand there, see your shadow on the earth, look into your eyes reflected in the lake, and suddenly realize you're not afraid of winter anymore. Not because you beat it, not because it won't return, but because you've become it. You've become the long nights, the wind hissing through the tent, the frozen hides, the thin porridge, and feet sinking in cold mud. You're the wary eyes at a dying fire's sound, the hand ready to break wood, carve meat, share blankets, the half-sleep with ears open for breaths beside you, the first to wake each morning, the last to close your eyes at night. You're the continuation of every terror you endured, and proof that humans can live with it without being consumed. They say winter will return. You don't deny it, but next time, when snow falls, wind howls, cold creeps through coat seams, you won't shudder like before. You won't say, "Damn, winter's here," but nod, purse your lips and think, "Hello again." You don't need to prepare like before, because you are winter. Your mind's colder than wind, your memory's thicker than snow, your gaze deeper than darkness. You no longer panic at lost light, missing wood, moans in the tent. They're just signals to act, no room for fear. You were once weak, screamed at night, unsure if you'd live to morning. Cursed ancestors, the heavens, even the newborn, for crying too loud in an exhausted night. But looking back, those moments marked your change. You're not the child needing shelter. You're the one the tent looks to when wind rises, the one your brother calls first when water boils or ropes snap, the one who knows which roof part to burn if wood runs out, who knows to blanket those by the fire first, those by the door last, who knows whose cough is sickness, whose is fatigue, whose signals leaving. You're the one who won't stop an old woman heading to the forest, but will walk her to the edge, place the best hide on her shoulder, and say, "No one will forget you." You're the one who won't wail at another loss, but will stoke a bigger fire that night, share food with the rest, and tell an old story to keep the tent lit till morning. You're the one kids will ask, "Was that winter really like that?" And you'll say, "No, worse." But you'll be fine if you fear the right things. You no longer resent winter. You know it's not the enemy. It's a test, a trial no one asks for, but all must take. And you, though not skilled, not strong, not chosen, passed with exactly what you had: endurance, stubbornness, and the ability not to fall when you should have. You still bear the scar on your leg, still keep the frozen nail pouch, still dream of silent, breathless nights, but you don't flee them anymore. You walk into those dreams, standing tall, like part of you turned to stone in the storm. Vikings don't live by conquest. They live by enduring. And now you understand that, more than ever. One early summer morning, you open the tent door, see sun through the roof. The village rebuilds old huts, patches roofs, sows seeds, laughter rings. Dried meat smells sweet. And you, as always, sit sharpening your axe. Not rushed, not showy, but with steady certainty. You don't need to tell anyone what you've been through. Just look at your eyes when you see snow. They'll know. And one day, when a child asks, "Are you scared of winter?" you'll sit, look into their eyes, and say, "No, because I am winter." And when winter returns, as it always does, you'll stand in the howling snow, unbowed, not because you're a hero, but because you're what's left, after all the times before. One who trembled, fell, cried, but didn't die, and winter will see you, and this time it will step aside. The tale of surviving a Viking winter isn't just an extreme historical portrait, it's a metaphor for modern life in America today, where people face their own winters, financial crises, loss of loved ones, depression, isolation, or sudden upheavals like pandemics, natural disasters, or simply feeling left behind by life. In the story, the protagonist survives not through superior strength, but by accepting harsh reality, adapting bit by bit, and keeping their spirit unbroken. When they burn their roof for warmth, gather nails to offer gods, or let an elder walk into the forest, they don't do so from weakness, but from knowing survival sometimes demands letting go of what was once untouchable. Americans today, especially in communities hit by poverty, disasters, or social disconnection, face similar tough choices between medicine and electricity, pride and asking for help, clinging to an old way of life, or learning to burn it to keep going. The lesson isn't be strong, but allow yourself to change, and don't fear becoming someone new. Like the Viking emerging from winter, not whole but grown, modern people must see that resilience comes, not from staying the same, but from letting parts dissolve, so the rest can live. If you're navigating your own life's winters, don't forget to subscribe, to join us in exploring the strangest, truest survival stories in history. Thank you for staying through this icy journey. See you in the next video, where the cold may return, but this time, you won't shiver anymore.